last year with me, Vicki, grade 9 Lambert Park student. These two are on a Save the World from Heart Attacks campaign, and they wanted to show that if you put a stent to open an artery on the outside, you would reduce vessel turbulence way more than the typical angioplasty that goes inside. So these girls took a silver medal. They also took the top math award for their age level in Canada. So we played to win. Vicki took her project on solo this year and actually took pig arteries and built stents into these vessels and measured the turbulence in them. And then, of course, I have Matt and Andrea, this project is near and dear to my heart. They were looking at improving reading success in grade 1 students. And this is why we came to you to show you a project that, where they're trying to change children's lives forever. So I'm going to let them talk about it.
So our question was, do young children need large print to learn to read? And can learning be made easier with smaller fonts and or shorter tracking distances? Our mentor teacher, Ms. Nye, demanded this experiment to have specific benefits before she would let us go on with it. So we designed this study that provided the following benefits. It was designed to collect project data for our science fair project while providing one-on-one reading time with young readers. It liaised younger students with older students, and it gave the mentors volunteer hours for high school, encouraged interactions between families of schools, to establish an ongoing yearly reading mentorship program, and regardless of our results, our grade 1 students must have fun. And should the hypothesis prove correct, it will allow teachers to develop better reading resources.
So how we developed the stories is we had increasing level of difficulty, mostly with adult words, and picture symbols because they fit with the curriculum. So as you see, there's some picture symbols on top of the screen, and it's like there was increasing level of difficulty every story we went through. Sorry. So we adjusted the layout of each story by changing the column width to 0.5 to 2.5, so we switched up back and forth with them. And the font size to 10, 16, and 24. And with the reader, we kept track of insertions, missed lines, omissions, substitutions, and told words.
This is very similar to the ORCA plan that the district uses.
We followed 20 grade 1 students at Hillcrest Elementary School in Miss Claudia J's class. We also followed 21 grade 3 students at Hillcrest School in Miss Barbara Sapsworth's class, using grade appropriate stories.
So with this first graph here, this was the total amount of all the insertions, missed lines, omissions, and substitutions and tolds. So on the left, the numbers going by 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 are the number of errors they go through for each story, and the axis on the bottom would be our combinations of stories. So 16, 24 meaning our font size, 2.5 and 0.5 meaning our margin size. And you see the 16, 2.5 is one of our best combinations, and yet you kind of don't really see, it's not really visually easier to, It's not visually easy to see that it's the most easiest combination. So we made a better graph, which is easier to see that you can see 16, 2.5 is one of the best combinations. And as the stories went on, we went to our last story, which is story 3 on the graph here. You can still see 16, 2.5, one of our best combinations. And this was the graphs between the guys and the girls. And the top graph is the boys, and the bottom graph is the girls. Both axes are alike, so you pretty much can see visually, girls are doing a lot better than boys.
Or giving the appearance that they're doing better.
So with the grade, we wanted to see if there was a trend with the 16:2.5 font size would go up with the older grades. So we had a grade 3 class that accepted our request, sorry. And 16:2.5 is still one of our best combinations, and yet 24 and 2.5, 24 and 0.5 are also another best combination. And we kind of thought with the other grade 1s, the 24 font was actually hard for them, but it kind of reversed with the older grade, but we can't really say that specifically because we didn't really have a big sample size. And this was the overall combinations of errors with both the grade 1 and grade 3 in comparison. Omissions, one of our highest for the grade 1s, but when you look at insertions, it kind of reversed. So maybe they have more comprehension into what they think is going to come up next.
After all of our analysis, we were left with 3 thoughts. Girls outperformed the boys, and bigger font proved difficult to read for grade 1 students, but seemed to start reversing for grade 3 students. And we can't comment on comprehension. So next year, we are challenging these ideas. Girls outperform boys. Is it true? We will test more classes of grade 1 students. If it is true, how do we adjust our approach to reduce this gap and analyze the different errors and determine if it is a particular error or a combination of errors? Develop new stories as appropriate. And bigger font proved difficult to read for grade 1 students but seemed to start reversing in grade 3 students. Is it true? Using a larger sample size, we will include grade 5 students. And next year's stories will be reformatted with 12, 16, and 20 point font. Could it be vision changes with glasses and eyesight?
So with comprehension, we also wanted to ask our readers the key questions about the stories they're reading. And some hurdles we faced throughout our project was...
This is for next year.
Next year, sorry. So we, more younger readers. And so we approached Hillcrest Elementary, George Day, and James Bay.
Because we know people there.
We need more mentors, and we have approached Lambert Park's leadership system, and we did tell our sponsor teacher, and we hope to get some more mentors. Okay, so we need release time for mentors. And so far it hasn't been an issue because our principal did say we are allowed to leave class for this project. And getting mentors to their volunteer classrooms. And that hasn't been a problem yet because we've used parent taxis. And time for a mentor teacher. This was pretty much a really hard thing because due to the teacher action, Miss Cheryl and I wasn't really able to work with us a lot. And so we would be able to working very hard in the summer to prepare for anything, any like hurdles and reading materials and such. So then if the teacher job just keeps on going, we don't need a lot of Cheryl and I's help. We can actually work on it ourselves. But when we have our fall results, we need assistance interpreting the types of errors. We need help devising strategies to circumvent these errors so we can try to raise reading success in early readers. And we haven't been able to solve that hurdle.
As our final comment, the two of us are committing to make this reading program work, and we are hoping that by the time we graduate, there will be a mentor reading program. There will be mentor reading programs throughout the district. Thank you for listening to our presentation. Any questions?
Thank you very much. What grade student? How long have you got on this program?
Grade 9, and we started this program in October.
So you've got some time. Thank you very, very much for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd just like to speak to these students. Trustee Danielle here. I worked as a reading specialist in the district for many years, and I just want to commend you on the design of the research, and I particularly want to commend you for not jumping to great generalizations from small sample sizes, as some outfits that are much bigger than you tend to do. So what a brilliant effort and great results, and I look forward to hearing from you when you continue the project. Just brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks again, and just so that you know, you are, if you wish to leave, you're more than welcome to. You're also more than welcome to stay with the meeting. It's totally up to you. We're not engaged in this.
I just wanted to comment to the students.
Just very briefly, please, Trustee Norr.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you for all your work, and Cheryl, I really appreciate everything you've done. It's just tremendous effort. Did the teachers ever give you any feedback that the students were feeling more positive about reading, felt better?
For sure. One of the students walked up to us and she's like, I really love if we had more time for the students to read with, because I never get time to actually get help with reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We now move into the community presentations, which are 5 minutes per presentation. We have a number of speakers, and we begin with Barbara Mitchell-Pollock, Council of Canadians, Victoria Chapter, speaking about the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement.
Barbara will go after me. Is that going to be okay?
And unfortunately, Doug isn't here today.
Okay, so Doug's not going to be here, so we'll take Doug off. And your daughter, Chandrael Moody?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going first, and then Barbara Pollock. Okay, so we're just switching places. Thank you.
Thank you very much, trustees, and thank you very much, Bev Horseman, for bringing a motion forward to opt out of the Canada-Europe Comprehensive Trade Agreement last Monday at the Operations Committee. This is a very strong motion. We really commend you for going forward with it, and I would like to, and Barbara will be bringing a few language changes if necessary that will further strengthen the motion, but Barbara will talk to us about that. What is CETA, and why should a school board be concerned about a trade agreement between Canada and Europe? CETA is different from all other trade agreements that have been negotiated before. CETA, for the first time, a trade agreement is being specifically targeted towards municipal and local procurement, and will impact all your actions and all have consequences on all of us at the local levels. For example, CETA will prohibit school boards from deciding who and where they get things from. Local procurement is now open. You would not be able to support markets for innovative local goods and services. You would not be able to prioritize green technologies. You would not be able to prioritize your relationships that you've developed here over the years with local businesses. It will prohibit school boards from applying any buy local or buy Canadian provisions too, because there are specific rules in the trade agreement that say these are not allowed, and then you can be taken to court, which I'll talk about in a minute. Some other major implications that we need to take note of. For the first time, CETA will give multinational corporations the rights and tools to take local governing bodies like municipalities and school boards in front of the tribunal in case they do not agree with a contracting decision that you made. There are some limits on the amount and the dollar amounts involved, but a lot of the bigger decisions you make, like a food contract or a service contract, the amounts there are big enough for CETA provisions to be triggered. CETA provisions will not apply only to European companies because of NAFTA reciprocity rules. American corporations will have the same rights as well. So it's not just about the European companies, it's about every other companies that will now be able to take you in front of the tribunal if they need to. Another, and this is not being talked about a lot, is that a lot of new patent and copyright legislation is being tightened. So, and fair use provisions that students and teachers use a lot to increase education, increase awareness, and make education more often. A lot of these things are being tightened under CETA because the European companies own a lot of these patents. So that's not a thing that is going to affect school boards everywhere. Why is it important for school boards to speak up? As long as municipal and school boards are part of the CETA deal, all its restrictions will apply. This is because the provincial government is negotiating on your behalf, and the federal government is negotiating on the province's behalf. But where the provincial governments have a seat on the table, you don't. So your opportunity to speak up is by saying, please exempt us, and then if enough of you do that, then they will have to hear it. Who has spoken up? More than 60 municipal councils, school boards, and associations have asked for more information. And more than 36 local governments and school boards have asked for an exemption, just like we're asking you to do today. For example, the City of Victoria in May 2012 unanimously passed a very strong resolutions against CETA. It asked the province of British Columbia for a clear and permanent exemption. It asked the federal government to protect the autonomous powers of the City of Victoria, and which is the same thing that you would want to do as well. It asked the federal government to further exempt from CETA any municipality that requests, and it asked the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to work with the government to get these exemptions passed. The BC School Trustees Association requested a briefing from the province of BC on the scope and content of negotiations under CETA, and that the provincial government negotiate a clear and permanent exemption for local governments from the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA. The School Trustees Association was very clear on this, and they were very concerned about their lack of autonomy and their loss of autonomy that they were going to face under these trade agreements. Another school board, the Chilliwack School Board, in 2011 passed a resolution calling for a briefing and also a clear and permanent exemption. So there are a couple of common threads here, is that a clear and permanent exemption. The Hamilton and Wentworth School District in Ontario did the same thing as well, asking for a permanent exemption. So, I mean, it is up to you, and it's up to school boards, it's up to councils everywhere to speak up against this trade agreement and pass resolutions calling for an exemption, because that's the only way the provincial government and the federal government will hear your voice. So I urge you to pass this motion, and Barbara will be proposing a couple of small language changes, but what you've passed already is very strong, and we again applaud you for doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we did have that information and shared it around with the trustees last week.
Thanks.
Barbara?
So I too want to congratulate you all for passing unanimously. That's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And so Brad and I are co-chairs of the Council of Canadians, and I'm not sure if everybody knows about the Council of Canadians, but I'm just going to give you a little briefing on it. It started in 1985 with Maud Barlow, Mel Hurtag, Farley Mowat, and Margaret Atwood. And it was in reaction to NAFTA, and that to keep Canada in Canada, and to treasure our public school systems, our public health systems, our water, and we're still running strong. We also represent, there's over 1,000 members in Victoria proper, and over 4,000 members on Vancouver Island. So there's lots of us, and I'm speaking for them because we don't want CETA. And I'm also a BC teacher. I'm very proud to be part of the union, and very much for not privatizing public education. Because public education is now threatened by cuts in resources that have made the system less able to meet the needs of students and communities. Not opting out of CETA would mean further loss of democratic control of our education system. Trade rules trump democratic decisions. If a school district wants to give preference to local suppliers, or say that the curriculum must be developed by people who have taught in the province, that action could be declared inappropriate restraint on trade on the right of the corporations from elsewhere to profit by supplying those goods. So that if we want to sell and farm the lettuce in Reynolds School or in other schools, that could also come under CETA as not legal, and they could challenge us. CETA trumps procurement contracts, made in Canada contracts, buy local policies. It all trumps, the CETA policy trumps all our basically public decisions. Our water, our sewage, it also can be challenged by public firms. Importantly for our school board, though, is CETA could commodify our education, making it saleable and a tradable product, privatizing its delivery. And unfortunately, the BC government promotes privatization and a market approach to education. Amendments to the School Act and Bill 34 in the spring of 2002 brought a new institution to the public schools in BC, the School District Business Company. Each school board now has the right to create a company to carry out business activities that would not be possible as a public body or would expose school districts to financial liability. CETA does not require privatization of public services. However, it would be very difficult to take any former public service that was privatized back under public control or extend public ownership into new services. Open schools would be up for sale. Open schools have been put on the market for a call for proposals for privatization. And when open schools were created, it was given without cost. All the materials were developed by the ministry, well, it was a branch of the ministry. Open schools earn a profit by selling course materials for distance education for students in BC. And the only figure I could find was in 201, they earned a profit of $142,600 by selling course materials. And as of the 202 or 2002-03 school year, every school district is now free to run its own programs. There's no cap on the number of students who can be enrolled in online programs. Each student brings the school district a basic funding, and again, this is old data, but $5,300 each. Students can be enrolled in districts, and whether deregulation, a district can recruit students from everywhere. In BC, we've exported education as well. Cross-border supply, providing educational services through the internet, are a form of this type of trade. Consumption abroad, consumers such as students studying abroad across borders, and commercial presence and investment in school providers is in another country is also a privatized open school. And
30 seconds.
Thank you. I can't take some of Doug's time, can I? Okay, in summation, I just want to thank you, and what I would bring forward in additional to your motion that you did forward, that the Victoria School Board will request that Prime Minister Harper change the terms of the draft of CETA from any restrictions in the CETA agreement that will not protect the autonomy of School Board 61, and that the resolution be sent to the provincial, federal, and government ministers responsible for CETA negotiations, School Board Association, or any relevant bodies for consideration and circulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Horseman, would you look at that wording past you? Barbara, could you pass it to Trustee Horseman, please? And you're more than welcome to stay until the motion is up for debate and revision as it appears it may well be, or you're free to leave the meeting. I hope you stay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to call on Ms. Tara Urquhart, President of the Greater Victoria Teachers Association. Tara will be speaking to us with respect to class size and the Learning Improvement Fund.
Thank you. So unfortunately, I was hoping to have more specifics, but I received a fair amount of information late this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to look at it closely with respect to the proposed allocation of the Learning Improvement Fund. I would like to say there was one meeting at which I was informed of the board's interest in allocating funds based on an index to different schools. I did express at that meeting that teachers felt strongly that the funds should be allocated to teaching time, that these funds did come about as the result of our court challenge to Bill 28, which saw the removal of class size limits and class composition limits in 2002, which pulled $300 million a year out of the school system, and which has resulted in the loss of 3,500 teachers across the province. I do notice there's a memo, I haven't done the calculation, but only a portion is evidently being proposed for the allocation of teaching time. So just so you're aware, we feel that we've lost significant teaching time and we need to make that up in any ways that we possibly can. I did also notice that the mechanism for the allocation means that there won't be a single full-time classroom teacher added. For those of you who don't know, when we went to the table with government, the BCTF, in regards to remedy for Bill 28, we proposed class size and composition language. It was no kindergarten class over 20, no 1 to 3 class over 23, no 4 to 7 class over 28, no 8 to 12 class over 30, and that these sizes be adjusted relative to the composition, so that for every high incidence student with a designation, that the class size would be reduced by 1, and for every low incidence student with a designation, the class size would be reduced by 2, so that in fact, where you had significant additional needs in class, there would be a smaller class size, ensuring that there was adequate teacher time to address the needs of all the students. Initial look at class sizes shows there are a lot of classes up in the 28, 29, and 30 range already. So clearly the LIF is not meeting the needs in terms of addressing class size in this district. We did a little calculation on many of the schools to see if we applied these numbers, what would the school look like. I'll just give you one number as an example. Willows Elementary would require 8 additional classroom teachers in order to meet these figures based on the current projected enrollments and students. Clearly the process and discussion will go on. I would, however, encourage you to do everything in your ability to join teachers and other partners in education to really advocate. And I mean really advocate. We know many people have sent letters. We know that many districts like you have prepared parallel budgets, but I really feel that if we're going to have success and we're going to actually turn things around, that we need to be taking stronger action than that. I would like to acknowledge that Duncan here is the member of the Cowichan board, and many of you know that Cowichan trustees are submitting a deficit-only budget that looks to restore services and actually address class sizes. And I would encourage you tonight to follow in their lead and to join them, because I think this is the kind of action that boards across the province really need to take if we're going to be successful in turning around this deterioration in terms of the quality of service we're able to provide because of the class size situation. So thank you very much for your attention. I would say as well that for those people who would like to support the Cowichan board in other ways, we will be holding a rally on Wednesday at 4 o'clock at the Ministry of Education building, and we invite parents, community members, everybody who would like to support a board that is saying, you know what, this isn't good enough, and we're going to build our classes and build our services according to the needs of our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to now call upon Michelle Mill, and Michelle will be speaking this evening about anaphylaxis.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm speaking tonight about a proposal to include an additional resource in the anaphylaxis policy and procedures. I'm referring to the example of one school's successful approach to managing anaphylaxis. I believe that this would be a valuable addition to the existing package already provided by the school district. In our experience, we've seen the positive impact that this approach is having on our second child. It allows him to actively participate in the school just like any other child, with the confidence that, while there's still some risk, his allergy needs are supported. It creates an environment of acceptance. When we compare this to our experience with our first child, we can see the direct benefits to the school community as a whole. By having the principal actively promote this model, requesting the support of the school and classroom community, it becomes the norm. This in turn supports not only the child and their family, it also provides support to the teacher and creates a positive framework within the classroom for those students with anaphylaxis. When reviewing the success of this approach with the school principal, we realized the importance of classroom parent reminders 2 to 3 times per year, which hasn't been happening at this point. For example, the key times such as before Halloween, post-Christmas, and spring break. While the school newsletter is important and provides valuable information, with so much to read, it's easy to miss the anaphylaxis reminders. Having the principal send these out separately provides parents with a fresh reminder and positively reinforces the school's commitment to continued success. I provided you with a copy of the model now used at this particular school. Their approach not only provides direct support to the student and their family, but also to the teacher, as it allows them to be confident that the school's policy ensures a school-wide approach to ensuring the safety of all students. To make the school environment safer and to increase the support, it would be possible to expand the policy by requesting all events held by or within the school community also avoid high-risk allergens such as peanuts or nuts. Given that there are so many nut-free, safe alternatives, this is no longer the same challenge that it used to be. So in closing, the way our school system handles anaphylaxis has really progressed in the last 10 years or so, and I believe that by adding this example to the existing policies, that it will continue, that this can, it's been a very long day. By adding this example to the existing policies, it will continue that movement forward and further support our school communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Just a point of information, this is the last meeting of the summer, and I know when you made the request, you were concerned with school start up in September and trying to deal with something before then. I know that when these regulations were developed, there was a committee that was set up in 2008, and it was, I believe, Vancouver Island Health Authority committee, and it was joined by the Lower Island school districts, and that's how this policy and the regulations were developed.
Right.
The committee no longer exists.
Right.
Having said that, I encourage you to get in touch with Deputy Superintendent Sherry Bell to see if there's some way that we can.
My request is just to include it as an example for schools and to, of course,
We very well may be able to do that, but since we won't have any committee meetings, this is our last meeting before. Summer? I missed spring. And now we seem to be in winter. Where did summer go? Anyways, I would encourage you just to check in with Sherry, okay, just to make sure that we can do this easily.
Okay.
Thanks. And I'd like to now call on Karen Lees, who will be speaking in Peters. Yes. Hi, Karen.
At the beginning of every year, parents receive a handful of consent forms to sign, acknowledging risks and proactively attempting to eliminate risks to school boards. At the ops meeting last week, a trustee suggested it was not their place to tell teachers what to do regarding Wi-Fi in the classrooms. I don't believe this to be true. If a teacher were to take students on a field trip hiking or to the beach without informing parents because there are certain risks attached to these activities, the district would react to this. In the case of Wi-Fi in the classroom, it could be said that initially related risks may not have been a known factor. However, since the Wi-Fi committee last met, the World Health Organization has reclassified all wireless technology as a 2B possible carcinogen. They are clear that there is a risk. On April 12, 2012, the American Academy of Environmental Medicine declared that the guidelines are inadequate in protecting public health and that children are at particular risk, such as altered brain development and impaired learning and behavior. In the news today, the Women's College Hospital in Toronto is the first to recognize electromagnetic hypersensitivity and calls on other doctors to learn more in order to help their patients. I brought a copy to hand out about that. The experts have spoken and raised concerns of risk. Decisions made by the Wi-Fi committee should not trump that of the parents who advise limiting exposure and precaution. BCC PAC at their May 2012 AGM passed the following resolutions. Resolution 17 calls on each Board of Education to have one public school at each education level, elementary, middle, and secondary, that is free of Wi-Fi, cordless phones, and cell phones. This school will only be equipped with wired computers and wired telephones for personal, educational, and administrative purposes. Resolution 18 calls on boards of education to cease to install Wi-Fi and other wireless networks in schools where other networking technology is feasible. Both resolutions were passed with a clear majority, 131 to 93 and 30 to 77. School districts and its teachers must heed these warnings and take caution with their students. Teachers would not spray DDT, also classified as a TB carcinogen, near students for a science experiment. Nor would schools start distributing coffee to students, even in small quantities. Although, to be clear, this 2B classification is relevant to high doses of coffee. Nor would schools be distributing the specific pickled vegetables from China that have been classified as a 2B possible carcinogen. School districts should not be implementing or exposing students or employees to any possible risks that they can avoid. Our youngest child has had very limited exposure to wireless technology. At home we have nothing wireless. There is currently no Wi-Fi in his school, no cell towers in our area, and our neighborhood has been tested professionally and is one of the lowest EMR areas in the city. He may actually be one of the least exposed children in our city. I am not providing the school district consent to expose him to any wireless technology during his school day. Last year I provided the principal with non-consent documentation, and I will be updating this for next year tomorrow. There is little to no evidence to suggest that this technology improves or increases academic outcomes in our students. It's not unlike the introduction of the video to the classroom, which was thought to be a technology that would save money, introduce experts to students, and improve learning. It's true, it's a tool and can be very effective, but it's never been the answer to improving student learning or increasing engagement. It's the new toy, an expensive one at that is instead lining the pockets of corporations rather than increasing the academic outcomes of our students, and at the same time puts all members of our school communities potentially at great risk. In summary, I am not providing consent for you to expose my child. So Peter's asked me to give you his non-consent form, and he's also asking that if this is shared in any way with the media, to not have his name or his child's name included for privacy.
Thank you, Karen.
I think it's just enough for the questions.
Thanks very much. I'd like to now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is A6 trustee report. And I'd like to call upon trustee Dale Borson, please.
Thank you. I just have a very quick and nice announcement to make on the trustee reports, and that is that at the last board meeting, people were kind enough to wear hats. It was Funky Hat Night, and there were a lot of donations made to the Cancer Society, and I very, very sincerely thank everybody for their support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trustee Borson. Trustee Norm?
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the speakers that have attended tonight and for their information. I appreciate all the work and the clarification for our consideration when the motion is coming forward and the work that needs to be done. I wanted to just briefly review some of the school events that I have attended and just to remind people that these have been outstanding experiences, and in large part they have been due to the dedication of our teachers in our classrooms as they struggle at this time in their job action. I was at Frank Hobbs and saw an outstanding dance performance in the afternoon. A great range of students all participating. I attended Craig Flower School and visited 2 classrooms. I was invited into a grade 1 class, Tanya Adams, and a grade 4-5, Judy Chetza. In both instances, it was remarkable to see the work being done in those classrooms, and in particular, their awareness of the emotional support that needs to frame every hour of every day in their work with the students. Janet Langston, the VP, said that they had art therapy in the school this year and that they were hoping to have play therapy next year. I attended spring comp fairs at Margaret Jenkins and Sir James Douglas, just briefly attending and visiting with some of the parents and enjoying some of the activities and lots of the art. I went to the Esquimalt High School for the ceremony that unveiled the mural and the welcoming bowl, and it was a remarkable experience. There was a young woman who had been a student at Esquimalt, and she spoke very powerfully about the importance she saw as now a young adult of 25 or 26 to return to school, and that's what she had planned to do, to go back to college. And she was a great model for the young students at Esquimalt. I wanted to just say thank you very much again for the retirement celebration. I thought it was just a wonderful experience for everyone, and I appreciated being able to attend as well. I wanted to just finish up by saying that I'm really disappointed that our board has chosen not to write a letter to the Minister of Education about Bill 22. All of these things, all of these school experiences are the result of these hard-working teachers that devote so much time and care to our students. We had a flood of letters at the beginning of the year. It's remarkable, the dedication and the talent. And these teachers right now are wanting so much to advocate for the funding for their students as well as for themselves in terms of modest concern about their own well-being. And we received a letter from the Nanaimo Ladysmith board, and in this, I just thought it was a very, very
Christy.
well,
I'm just giving you,
yes.
we do have a time.
Yeah, I'd like to just wrap up here by saying that they say that the numbers of the Education Statute amendments presents a confusing array of changes to several acts and regulations. And it goes on to say, well, the money attached to the Learning Improvement Fund is welcome. It presents a challenge to our staff to develop a thoughtful and effective plan and an overlay. In summary, Bill 22 intervenes in the collective bargaining process in a negative manner before the parties had a chance for even purposeful mediation. It restricts the menu of options available to the mediator. The Learning Improvement Fund, while financially attractive, will further conflict between the government and BCTF. And I feel the same way. I feel that we owe our teachers a voice. We need to say something to the Minister of Education about this Bill 22. It is unacceptable, and our teachers deserve to have our support. We can't just be at the retirement shaking their hands and saying thank you for all the good work, but no, I won't stick my neck out and write a letter of concern about the myriad of issues around Bill 22. I hope to bring it forward, and I hope for reconsideration of this.
Trustee Ferris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, I think every year in schools is a demanding year. I don't think there's any such thing as a not demanding year for the people who work with our students. However, I think this is possibly been a little bit exceptional. And I just wanted to thank all of our staff for doing whatever they can to put their students first while conducting their business in an unusual situation. And I wanted to thank our district leadership team for their support of the superintendent and for their support of we as trustees around the table during this year. So thank you all.
Thank you, Trustee Ferris. Trustee McNally, and then I have Trustee Edith Morgan.
I'll address the mic. I'm in trouble with this mic. Thanks, Chair. I want to begin by saying how much I enjoyed something that I hope lots of our students get to, although it's not, the pathway for everybody, and recognizing the great value of the trades. This was an Aboriginal graduation ceremony at the university, and I was honored to be invited by Trustee Laura Kahanga and to sit with her family there in the First People's House on campus. This is not your regular grad ceremony. It was extremely based in real family values. The community and family support there was awesome and heart-touching to see. The stories told about the individuals who were graduating were very memorable. So thank you, Trustee Laura Kahanga, for allowing me to attend that ceremony, and I do hope we'll see some of our students there. I have a printed report here, so if anybody wants to hear about all the things I can't say in 5 minutes, I can give you a copy. There's a few typos here because I typed it up really fast. I want to just say that healthy sandwich has proved to be a lot more interesting than I thought it would be, and there's going to be a GMO-free sandwich on the next agenda, which I guess I don't have a whole lot to say about that as a school trustee, but as an individual, I like to chime in, and they let me, so I think that's just a brilliant item on our agenda, and I look forward to that discussion. Something new that I did was I contacted the Roots of Empathy local volunteers and went to the school baby party at Cloverdale. It was brilliant, and the wind-up party at Sleeping Dog Farms. This is such a lovely program. It is the Roots of Empathy indeed. I went to the GPTA presentation on the program for quality teaching. This is through professional development, teachers doing their own professional development in a research project of their choice, and it does have inspiration, results, and conclusions. A lot like what we saw from those brilliant grade 9 students, but you know, at a bit quite a lot more practical level. They are going to do it one day, I'm sure. What else have we got here that's, I want to tell you about the Esquimalt secondary graduation. I was honored again to give one of the speeches there along with Associate Superintendent Kurgel and the principal, and what a wonderful thing that was to see all those wonderful young people across the stage with their little bios and dreams of their life to come after school. Another brilliant thing is the Esquimalt student-led quintet. It reminds me of Tafel music, which is a musician-led consort, and it works really well. And so is this quintet, and I managed to spell quintet incorrectly every time. So they are just brilliant, and they appear to be retirement team. They're wonderful. I went to the Esquimalt Secondary, the District 61 Aboriginal Nations graduation at S.J. Willis. That again was a wonderful weekend, and thank you very much. It's all here if you want to read more.
Thanks. Trustee Edith Lord.
Thank you. Yes, it only took me 18 years to finish my master's in education and leadership, but I finally did it. So that was good. So I wanted to follow up in regards to the Aboriginal grad at SJ Willis. It was such an honor to see 73 Aboriginal students graduate from all walks of life, from all parts of the country that are here residing in the Greater Victoria area and attending our school. So I really want to send a special thank you to Nella Nelson and the staff who have worked so hard with so many of those students to be able to see them succeed at the end. And I had a chance to talk to some of them, and some of them that have some dreams. It's just incredible. So that's what really gives me hope as an Aboriginal person, when I know that our Aboriginal, many of much of our population is below the age of 25, and to be able to see so many of our students who are carrying on and being able to fulfill their dreams, and hopefully an increase in the number of graduates that we received this year in the Greater Victoria School District. So a big thank you to Nella and her staff, and all of the teachers and all of the support staff that have worked to make that a success. The other thing I wanted to say is I also attended the Esquimalt High School totem pole raising and wall mural, and it was just to be able to be there and witness the protocol and everything that happened, and to be able to have all of those students that were in attendance be able to witness when something happens and how in our culture everything stops. And that situation is dealt with before anything else happens. And I think it was a really good lesson for not only our staff at the district, but also the students, the parents, and that were in attendance. So, you know, I want to send a special thank you to Esquimalt High, Diane Sam, and all of the team that worked so hard at Esquimalt to make sure that that was a reality, both with funding and with protocol, and just following through with it. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Trustee. The next item on the agenda is the chair report. Tom, are you happy to know? I really shortened it.
So on behalf of the board,
And as a result of a motion passed at our May 22nd board meeting, we now have our advocacy letters and responses on our website. And they can be found on the drop-down menu under Board of Education. So if you want to go and take a look, that's where they're at. Trustee McAvoy and I continue to attend regular meetings of the Oakdale High Advisory Committee as we move into the tight time frame, getting geared up to getting shoveled to the ground next spring. The Superintendent, Secretary, Treasurer, and I had the pleasure to meet with the Esquimalt Mayor Barb Desjardins on June 12th, just a week and a bit ago, and it was a very good meeting, a very positive meeting. And just as in summary, what other comments have been made by the trustees, I also attended a number of concerts and celebrations of graduation and retirement, and I believe that I can say that for all of us, these opportunities reinforce our beliefs in public education and the wonderful student achievement found in this district. We should all be very proud of what has been done and continues to be done, even through trying and challenging times. The silver lining in these times is seeing how students, parents, and other staff have shown great leadership in stepping up to ensure that these wonderful opportunities continue wherever possible, in spite of some students' disappointment at canceled year-end trips or concerts or presentations. At this point in time, I'd like to thank all of you, trustees, senior administration, district staff, our district leadership team, teachers, students, and parents, and wish you all a very safe and happy summer. Thank you. We'll now move into Section C, Board Committee Reports, and over to you, Trustee Alpha, for Education Policy Development Committee.
Thank you. We had a wonderful evening with our Education Policy Development Committee. It was our literacy night, and we were able to hear from the Noisy Kids Reading Club and the Reading Recovery students. We read books with them, and they were very charming students. The rest of my report is on page 12-13, and I know that we're a little pressed for time, so I'm going to keep it short. You're welcome to read it, 12 and 13, and
You have a motion?
oh, right, I forgot, where's the motion? Right. Maybe that was... The Board of Education, School District 61, approved the 2012-2013 Achievement Contract. And can I have a seconder for that motion, please? Oh, yeah, I'll second. Great, okay, it's seconded. So any discussion? Trustee Laurie Kahunga. Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't want to speak to it, so we're just going to
Yeah,
questions for you.
yeah,
So
go ahead.
it was Trustee Lauren Kahunga, Trustee Horseman, and Trustee Norris, is that correct? Trustee Lauren Kahunga, please.
Thank you. So when I look at, I compare from last year and the comments to this year, I think that, I've seen an improvement in some of it. But I wonder about some of the, under the targets, and I'm looking at page 40, 41, and on, where it's taken a look at all of the actions, and then from the actions, looking at the targets. I guess the words that I'm looking at is when I see something on, for instance, on page 40, improve student learning in literacy and numeracy in our most vulnerable schools. I have a hard time being able to know whether or not we met that target if there is no quantitative data that's attached to it, and maybe it's because I've just finished my master's that I'm thinking more about that. But when I look at terms like just saying improve, I think that we need to be able to put some data to it. Are we looking at 50%, 51, 52%? What does improve mean? And all the way through, whether that's under the school learning mentors, the middle and secondary
every one of those, many of those targets have the term improved, and I just feel that it would be very difficult for us next year to be able to say whether or not we actually met that target without having some quantitative data to it. That's one question, always for the answer to that.
Through the chair. I'm going to first speak around the example that you gave. The Enhancing Support for Vulnerable Learners, that is a new program, so we don't have any data on it, but maybe I'll speak to in general terms around information that we collect. There's a variety of school-based, some provincial data, and some project-based data, and that's what I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about. When we work with teachers, our learning initiatives teachers, our learning initiatives team, what they'll do often is at the beginning of the time when they work with a group of teachers, they'll have teachers bring in samples of the student work, and they'll look at it together, and they'll evaluate using a protocol. And a lot of the data is in the back of the contract, but what they do is they'll look at their individual students and say, okay, where is the student in relationship to the performance standard that they're looking at? And then at the end of the project, the teachers will do two things. They'll relook at their own students to see if their own students have improved, and then they'll look at themselves too and say, how do I think my students are doing? So there's a variety of data that we do use. Classroom marks is some, but the very project-specific ones is really very teacher-based with the students that the teachers have. And we do collect that. And in Appendix A, you'll find a little bit more detail that help support the target.
So I guess the question that I'm asking is, how do we determine whether or not we met those targets without having quantitative data attached to it? Is it 51%? When we look at all of the underneath the appendix that you're talking about, if right now, if as an example on page 66, if we're looking at grade 7 all students in terms of reading, right now we're looking at 2011. If we looked at the number in 2011 and then look at 2008, we see not yet meeting, excuse me, 195 versus 192. So drop from 20 to 14%. So if we had a target on that and we said, okay, this year we're at 14%, next year we want to increase by 1%. Then I just have a couple of questions about numbers that were increased and decreased on page 66 if we stay with that graph.
Just a sec. Can I just have Deputy respond? Deputy Superintendent.
Could you go to page, if you would go to page 56, and I think that will illustrate one of the things that we don't do is we don't just look at FSA. We look at classroom marks, we look at teacher evaluation of their students in the projects that they're working on. And the data there is what I was referring to. So if you look at the action research teams that were involved with learning initiatives, they looked at their students at different points in the year, so October and June, and they looked at them under different aspects of learning. So maybe I'll just use the first one on page 56 as an example. So if you look at the students meeting and not meeting in October and June compared to October and June at the end of that chart, what you're looking at is reading comprehension for that group of students in that project working with those teachers. So although one of the things that we try not to do is to say we want our students to improve by 2% in FSA. We want the students to improve based on how their the evaluation is taking place within the project that we're working on. So that's just an example. If you take a look at the very specific projects, we do want to see improvement within that cohort of students, as well as improvement over time with other pieces of information.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Trustee Horseman now, please. Thank you. I'll come back to you, but you had a couple of questions, and just to spread it around. Oh, I'm putting you back on the list.
Thank you. I just had two comments to make. First of all, I think this is a really wonderful document. It's such a great snapshot of what goes on in the district and in the variety of ways that student achievement is trying to be raised. It's very, very informative. I was just looking at page 36 where it was talking about the Healthy and Caring Schools part. And it mentions in the second paragraph all of the community-based ways of supporting vulnerable students in the district. It mentions local police departments providing service or support to schools. And I'm reminded that, like everybody else, they're setting their budgets for the coming year. And there is a cost to police liaison officers. And I just thought it might be timely for us as a board to thank the Oak Bay, Victoria, Saanich police department. Yes, I'd like to say that as direction that the chair or the superintendent or both could write a letter of thanks for school liaison because they perform such a wonderful function. And I don't know that we've ever actually thanked them per se. Have we? Well, there should be a yearly thing, I think, because it is a cost to them. The other point I wanted to raise was under the innovative and promising practices. And I note that the GSA committees, which Trustee Alpha and I are liaison to, haven't actually met all year. And I was just wondering if you know when we could expect to go to the next meeting. Given the recent ruling about district committees, would this committee come under that? So it's a district committee. So I really look forward to that liaison opportunity because it's such an important support function for the students and the teachers in the district. So that's all.
Thanks. Just to follow up on just Trustee Murray, you're next. But speaking about the community liaison police officers, there was a budget meeting and there was discussion whether those police liaison officers will even continue. So they were, we were at the Brad for SJ the other night and had a couple of the community police officers there. There was a meeting that very evening. So I think if we can send a letter, that would be very good. And I hope that they continue to be part of our community. Thank you. Trustee North, please.
Thank you. So as I review this, as I review the achievement contract, I see with each year that there's more and more teacher-directed involvement and more inquiry based on teams of teachers and their own evaluation of their students' performance. And I'm really very, very glad to see that. I wanted to just mention that on page 63, it says class achievement, grade 10 English and grade 12 English. Our district still doesn't meet the provincial benchmark. And I'm just going to suggest that that this possibly could reflect the lack of funding and the lack of teacher support because there's so many great initiatives and there's so much work being done, and yet we still don't quite meet that benchmark. And I was wondering, through the chair to the deputy superintendent, if you have any insight into that. It's not a huge discrepancy, but it's there.
As I said at the Education Policy Committee meeting, we continue to stay focused on what is most important, which is literacy, numeracy, our graduation rates, and our Aboriginal success. And so it's an example of why we have to keep to those goals of making sure all students at all grades are successful in literacy.
Trustee McNally and then Trustee Lauren Kahunga.
So I just want to make a comment on page 45 as a former reading recovery teacher. I'm so glad to see it in here, being recognized. So just as a target, Overall improvement in literacy for all students who complete the full intervention. It's too late to include this in the document, I'm sure, but as a reading recovery teacher, the overall improvement is stated as actually students performing at or above the level of their average peers in the classroom. So it's a pretty significant achievement. Just a question on page, which page? This is the bottom numbering, so this would be page 54. I would like to ask a question here for you to whoever can answer it in terms of the district principal, student services, following up with students by reconnecting with those who may have left school. I'd like to know how those students are I genuinely want to know, how do you get hold of them, and when you get hold of them, what does the reconnection look like? If this isn't the proper place to ask that question, I can ask it later, but it seems like a very vital question.
The district principal contacts the students that have left any way he can. They phone friends, they get old cell phone numbers, and these are students that perhaps have left the city. They use every means possible to try to get hold of the student through their parents, through friends, and we keep track, Trustee McNally, throughout the year, any student that is at risk of leaving. Superintendent and three associates, we continually keep track of that. At the school level, conversations happen with the principals. And so the students that are being referred to here are ones that maybe have left for a while and are coming back. We never lose track of where they are, because the goal is to have them graduate.
Okay, Trustee Ferris, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to, one of the things that is nice here, it's too bad that our students from who presented to us earlier in the year, or earlier in the evening, didn't have an opportunity to share this with us, since they're clearly very interested in our district goals, and they gave such an outstanding performance. I also wanted to comment that this is a document which always impresses me by how it seems more creative each year. So I want to congratulate all the people who put it together for the thought they put into it. I mean, because one could easily simply go back to the same old document and change the numbers and here we go. But it really is a beautiful crafted document. I think it really reflects very well the strategic planning process that our district undertakes, and which begins at the beginning of the year and culminates with this report. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and I absolutely concur. I think the numbers of the comments are similar, so I promised Trustee Lauren Kahunga I would go back to her, and then I see that Chara wanted to make a comment. So after Chara, then we'll call the question. You've already sort of said you do one thing and then you've gone further, but it's really quick. I will for you, Stephen. Thank you. So it'll be Trustee Lauren Kahunga, Trustee Nora, and then Chara, and then the question.
Thank you. So I'm not going to ask my question until the end. So I don't get cut off. So just a couple of comments. I'm just following up with Diane's on her reading recovered on page 45. I would like to see some numbers there rather than just the overall improvement. Another thing I'd like to see, and I'm not saying for this year, but for next year, looking at student reflections, it would be nice to have a couple of student reflections comments in the document instead of just teachers. I think it would be, kind of put some highlight to it. I wondered a couple of things, and I see, a decrease of 10%, and that kind of alarms me when I look at grade 7 reading meeting in comparison. In the last 3 years, we've decreased by 10%, and that kind of alarms me. And I think there's probably lots of factors to that. But I want to go to page 41. And when I take a look at 41 in terms of the district student withdrawals, and I did compare Trustee McNally's, the beginning of her question, of her last question, if she was making reference to this particular page or not. But when I look at 09 and 10, and 10 and 11, for all students, I see an increase of student withdrawals for all students in comparison to Aboriginal students. The Aboriginal students seem to have decreased, and whereas the general population seems to have increased in withdrawals. And I just wondered if there was any reasoning about that.
What was that page?
Okay, page 41.
69.
69.
Question?
So I'm wondering whether or not we've looked at why, with student withdrawals in the general population, we have an increase, quite a significant increase of students that have withdrawn, whereas with the Aboriginal students, there's actually been the number has decreased in the number of withdrawals. And I just wondered if there was any factors that led to that.
I think that whenever you're looking at something like this, we talked about it over the 14 years, you're looking for trends over time. And I think that when you're looking at from 05 to 10, 11, again, you're looking at trends over time. Some of them are withdrawn because they're actually considered to be withdrawal if they spend more than 6 years in our system. And as you know, we take in students through our SD Willis and other places, and we encourage students to stay on. The 6-year cohort is a ministry,
Very arbitrary.
very arbitrary. It could have been 5, it could have been 7, and I'm not sure whether or not we should be ashamed of 7. The fact is we get a big boost with those students that we keep for the extra year. But your point is still the correct point, but I'd ask you to look over trends over time. And I think that if you look at that, you see that there is a constant improvement. If we start to go up in the next couple of years, then we have to relook at what we're doing and ask ourselves why. But we monitor every single individual. But it does frustrate us when the child, when the student starts the 7th year, he is considered to be a withdrawal. These are those that will not count in our 6-year cohort.
Thank you, Trustee Nor. Your question, please?
Thank you. On goal 1, objective 2, to increase social responsibility, it's page 18, through environmental and global awareness. Was this a shift away from personal responsibility and interpersonal relationships? Because it seems like a very unique approach to social responsibility.
If you can tell, this was a group effort along with Melanie, who's sitting here, and others that sit on the advisory committee, so we could probably all speak to this one. It's not a shift away from that. It was a narrowing in to look at something very specifically. That the movement towards global and green awareness, if you want to call it that, has been reflected in the school growth plans. And so, of course, the achievement contract reflects a lot of what is in the school growth plan. And so the group felt it was important that they narrowed it in on something specific. Well, that would actually shift quite often where there's specific goals.
John? It's also really important to state that, and Tom mentioned it, Trustee Ferris mentioned it before, we don't want to just regurgitate to do that. We want to challenge ourselves on this issue. We really want to put it to the forefront. We really want to see 48 schools buying in on it. That was part of the reasoning too.
Yes, I am, but I'm actually just waiting for the trustees to finish their discussion, and then I hadn't forgotten you, Catherine.
I think that objective two is supported by student interest. We've had many presentations at the board that have been environmental, green presentations. And I think when we are looking at social responsibility, part of what we want to include in that is student interest, and I think we want to be driven by that. So that's a huge piece of why I think that objective is the right one to be going with. Tara, still on the list, but you keep dropping down. McNally, Trustee McNally, please.
So on page 46, this is that same page, this is an interesting initiative, and the target is to reduce and eliminate the need for garbage receptacles. And this is really exciting to me, because to me that means we're going to eliminate all the plastic bags that are inside the garbage receptacles. Is this the goal?
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm excited. This is brilliant.
Okay, so that's the final comment. We're sort of going on in the same venue, and we've had lengthy discussion about that ed policy last week, or pardon me.
No.
Ed policy, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it's part of month. Yes, that's right. 2 weeks ago. So Tara, please, and if you just direct your comments through the chair, that's great. Are the instructions not there for the mic? They should be there on the table.
I think that's on.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I think the preamble describes this as a district conversation. For those who don't know, teachers do not participate in the writing of the achievement contract or the school growth plans, and that's primarily because we believe these are too narrow in focus and too driven by ministry requirements. You'll notice that every year since they've been in existence, they focus on literacy, numeracy, and social responsibility at the exclusion of almost everything else. And so, we really don't feel that the format or structure provides any genuine opportunity for people at the school level to have significant input in terms of, looking at what planning should be like for schools in the district. I also wanted to point out that if you look at most of the data that is there, which is, again, fairly narrow in scope, the numbers have essentially plateaued. And, I think that's related to the fact that we have a funding problem. And, to some degree, we can, tweak this program and that program. I can't tell you how many staff meetings I've been at where the discussion has been linear versus semestered systems. But when you actually have a significant...
That Trustee Ferris said, and the way that the team is always looking at different ways of gathering information and making things better. I always think it's better to be at a table and working from within and working from outside, so I would encourage the teachers to rethink their strategy and get involved, and perhaps that's a good way of us being able to expand what is viewed by a narrow mandate. But thank you very much, and with that I'll call the question on the motion to approve the 2012-2013 achievement contract. All those in favor? Hands high please so we can see. You got that? All those opposed?
And could I have my, I would like to make a comment with my negative vote, please.
Yeah, this is just, you're just recording your negative vote.
Yeah, I'm recording it, and I'm saying that a big piece of that reason is because the 48 million that we asked for in our needs budget is not forthcoming at this point, and until we have enough money to actually meet the real needs of students, I can't support the achievement contract.
Well,
You'll put some of that in there? Thanks.
Everybody has a comment on what they
Yeah, we
voted
don't.
for.
Yeah, you either voted for or against it. There really isn't a procedure nor policy nor Robert's rules where you add your comments. So I would say you just say no comments. We'll now move on to Operations Policy and Planning Committee, and I'll hand it over to Elaine. Trustee Leonard, please.
Thank you very much. We had a lively meeting as well. And we have 3 motions before the board this evening. First motion is up there. The Board of Education of District 61 approved the submission of the needs budget letter and costing to Ministry of Education with the addition of note 3. The budget costing reflects the input received from the consultative process with our education partner groups, school planning councils, and the public. And just for the board's information, that the letter of the wording on page 65 in your package doesn't reflect the few changes that we made, but it would be reflected in the motion should this go forward tonight. And that was page 65. Second last paragraph, the last line is needed to effectively address the diverse learning needs of our students. The word effectively we added in at the ops meeting. And in the very last line, receive the best education possible in the 21st century. We added at the ops meeting, and the chair has let me know that it was just forgotten in this part, but that is part of the motion, that those changes are in the letter.
Is there any discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. You want to speak? You're going to speak to it, okay.
I am. I abstained from the vote at the ops meeting, and I will not be supporting the motion tonight. I believe that we should be setting a needs budget. I don't believe that this is a needs budget. I think this is a wish budget. This is in my mind a wish list. In a perfect world, this is what we want, and I know that trustees didn't develop the dollars here, that it went out to the stakeholder groups, and I think if we want to be treated seriously as a ministry, we should be sending in serious dollars. And to my mind, the way the budget was developed, and there's no fault of the committee, this is what sort of way we asked them to do it. But in my mind, if I'm going to support a budget that we send in, I want it to be a realistic number of what we think we actually need. Some of these things we've never had in our district, and I don't believe there's any real way in God's green little earth that we're ever going to get them, but we might actually get what we needed. So I can't support this.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Are there any further speakers to the motion? I'd actually like to just make a brief comment. I think that I respect Trustee Leonard's position on this. I'm looking at this as what our stakeholders put forward and the ministry to look at that. But I'm also looking at this as potentially the basis for when the needs budget committee returns and meets again in September, that we start using this as a basis on which to build an actual budget that meets what we determine to be, or what we would recommend to the board to be as a need. So I am supporting this because it came through our stakeholders, and I think we've made that very clear in our letter, which also speaks to the public's input in advocacy for public dollars. So I will be supporting this motion. Thank you. Is there any further speakers? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thanks.
Second motion that's before us this evening is that the Board of Education of School District 61 approve the 2012-2013 Board of Education and Standing Committee meeting date. Go ahead. So speaking to the motion, it's just dates that will happen throughout the year. Our ops meeting, our education policy meeting, giving the public as much notice as we can, taking into account all of the holidays that follow within the year, and then we would post these on our website so people would have adequate notice about our meeting dates.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Are there any comments, questions with respect to this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Unanimous? And opposed, it is unanimous. Thank you. Trustee Leonard?
And the words that I have from our meeting for this motion is that the Board of Education School District 61, Greater Victoria, write a letter to the Ministry of Education asking that school districts in British Columbia be exempted from the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, because of implications on the board's ability to hire local tradespeople and purchase local goods and services, and that the board will copy BCSDA, public school boards, and members of Parliament.
Trustee Horsman.
Thank you. And thank you to the people who came from the council in order to speak to the issue and also to propose an amendment. In speaking to the motion, I must say that I like what the public proposes. Very, very unusual for the public to suggest a motion that immediately is adopted by the board. But in this case, I like the wording of the motion that was suggested, in that it talks about protection of the autonomy of the School Board 61, which I think is more comprehensive than the wording that I had first proposed. So I've asked Vicki to put it up as an amendment. So the wording in front of it, so the wording below, okay, thanks. So the wording below is the wording that was proposed by the Council of Communities. I'm sure I got it right. So I'm just speaking to the difference between the two motions, and then I intend to move the second motion as an amendment. But speaking to the difference between the two motions, I note that the motion that was proposed by the Council of Canadians concentrates on the autonomy of the school district, whereas the motion that I had presented asked for exemption not only for our school district, but for all school districts in British Columbia. And therefore, I think we should add something to the wording that was proposed by the Council of Canadians. In addition, I noted when they were making their presentation that our motion talked about sharing the letter with members of Parliament and not with MLAs, and it was clarified that in fact it is the province negotiating on our behalf, so we should be sharing the letter with all MLAs, which is incorporated in their motion. So I'd like to move the amendment that is shown on the board with the addition of one sentence, and that is at the end of the first paragraph, add further, this board believes that all school districts in BC should be exempted. So I would need a second.
Yeah.
So I would need
Were you seconding that?
I would just like to have,
Okay, so
do another amendment.
Okay.
A friendly amendment that would incorporate.
So she's going to second that, and then you're going to amend the.
Okay.
So I seconded.
Okay, Edith.
I was just going to say, I wonder if this would fix it, if there are many restrictions in the CETA agreement that will not protect the autonomy of school boards in BC or school boards. It's general enough, that would that be encompassing enough?
I'm wondering that myself, and therefore I decided to go with their wording in that we as a school board can ask for our own autonomy to be protected. And then I added another sentence that would extend that to other school boards in the province. But I thought that I liked the strength of asking that our own autonomy be protected. And so I understand where you're coming from on that, but I just thought that this wording might be stronger with the additional sentence. The additional sentence is further, comma.
Sorry,
Oh, it goes at the end of autonomy of school board number 61. Which should be school district 61, not school board. Yeah. And then the next sentence is further, comma.
Bear with us a moment, we'll get this on the screen for you. Thanks.
Board of Education, Greater Victoria.
Great.
Just Board of Education.
It's full.
And then school district. It's a what? No, Beth didn't want it to be that she wanted to replace. She wanted to replace the one big amendment. It's an amendment.
Oh, is it changing the intent? No, it's not changing the intent. That would be, as long as the amendment doesn't change the original intent.
No, it doesn't change the original intent, it strengthens it by talking about the autonomy of the school districts instead of implications to local.
Got some numbers here.
So do you want to, would you?
Please read that full new one out. Trustee Horton, please.
Okay,
And then
that,
we'll put it on the floor for discussion.
so it's moved that the Board of Education of School Board number 61, Greater Victoria, being up to the Board of Education of the School District. Yeah, that's right, district. School District number 61. All right, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, request Prime Minister Harper to change the terms of the draft CETA from any restrictions in the CETA agreement that will not protect the autonomy of School District number 61. Further, this Board of Education believes that all school districts in BC and British Columbia should be exempted. I think we should take away the quotation marks.
Yeah, those quotation marks have to go, they don't belong there.
We have a lot of English teachers over here.
Yes.
Reading the last paragraph, that this resolution be sent to the provincial and federal government ministers responsible for the CETA negotiations. The provincial territorial school, so that means the British Columbia School Board Association. Not provincial territorial, the provincial, the British Columbia School Board Association, which is BCSTA.
And it should say,
And the other relevant bodies.
CETA should actually be, the first CETA should be written out as to what it is.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then it can be in acronyms afterwards.
Okay, so we don't have that right now. Up here where it says the draft, it should say the draft school trustees, not school board.
School trustees, that's right, BCSD.
Let's keep a semblance of order here so that.
I apologize to the group for the on the floor, on the run, construction of the motion.
well, it's
It is a stronger motion, and it does have the same, it makes the intent stronger, and it is time sensitive.
It's above, it's right above.
Yeah. You can use the acronyms after the second.
Okay. So everybody understands, yeah, the thought, yeah.
So is that, you're amending, you're doing a friendly amendment to your own motion?
Yes.
So you're very friendly with yourself.
very friendly with yourself.
Yeah, so we'll speak to the motion.
Okay, so, thank you.
Are you okay with that? Yes, I'm fine. So speaking to the motion, it's a lot of very important points were made by the representatives from the Council of Canadians. And in addition, when we first put this motion forward, we introduced the idea that our ability to hire local First Nations Aboriginal representatives to our own school district classrooms could be imperiled. We don't actually know what the full implications of CETA are because we don't know what the wording is exactly. And so this is a preemptive motion in the sense that it's asking that our autonomy as a school district, as a democratically elected school district for Greater Victoria, not be compromised by this agreement. And further, that the autonomy of other school districts in the province also remain intact. So I think we have so many different examples of how we could be impacted in our district. We're building a new school in Oak Bay, for example. Hopefully any conclusion to these agreements would not insert itself in the middle of processes, community processes that have been in place for a number of years and have involved a large part of the community in the design and the function of the new school, as well as the local builders. There are many other. I was very alarmed at the notion that curriculum development could be taken away from the school district's control. In fact, I met an example of that. Someone in Saanich has a business writing curriculum for poverty-stricken schools in the States that actually goes as far as mandating what the teacher's going to say. It actually scripts the teacher's role, if you can imagine. And that would be a disaster to have that sort of thing open to our school district. So I strongly urge unanimous support for this motion and look forward to hearing comments by other trustees.
Thank you, Trustee Horsman. Trustee McNally, or pardon me, Trustee Leonard, you had your hand up before?
I'm good.
You're okay? Trustee McNally, please. And then Trustee Lauren.
I'm completely in favor of this as it's being amended and tweaked. It's a brilliant motion. In fact, I had my own version ready and wrote up a giant rationale, so it's been really good to hear everything here tonight from trustees, from Trustee Horsman and the Council of Canadians particularly. I'm just going to pick out one item here in the backup that we got, I think, from Trustee Horsman previously. It says under CETA, CETA specifically prohibits taking any privatized service back into the public sector. That just makes my blood run cold, and all the other reasons that have been expressed here tonight. So I'm completely in favor.
Thank you, Trustee McNally. Trustee Lauren Kalunga, please.
I do speak in favor of the motion. I really believe in public services, and I see this as so much privatization and moving away from it. And glad that you brought up Oak Bay High School, because that is an area of concern that I have, and I've expressed it at the board table, that I think that when we're looking at going up to tender, we really need to look at employing our own local people rather than sending it out. And I hope that this motion will help guide that process in any of the procurements that come through the district from now on.
Trustee Norton?
I concur and I support the motion. I think this is...
I really would. And thanks to everyone around the table for the work at that time. Trustee Horsman, to close?
It's to close, but I hate to say this, but I've been re-looking at the motion. And as an English teacher, but also in the interest of clarity and strength, I think that we should make a slight change in the sentence that says, further, this Board of Education, I think we should say asks that all school districts in DC be exempted. Because instead of, or requests would be fine. Then it follows the other format. Requests that all schools, and we take away should.
Isn't request kind of soft?
Well, it's what we're requesting Prime Minister Harper to change the terms, and then that we request that all school districts be exempted. Because we're not actually mentioning the word exempted in relation to ourselves until we talk about all school districts.
But it needs to be yes.
Yes, this Board of Education requests that all school districts in DC be exempted.
And before it was a statement of belief, now it is a statement of action. It's a request.
So you're happy with your present friendly?
Yes, if everybody else is. And thank you for your support.
And that was your closing? So seeing no more? No. I'm getting twisted. Yeah. All those in favor of the motion, please show your support. There you go, it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. So we'll next move on to our district leadership team reports, and I'll now turn it over to Pat Duncan, Associate Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have reviewed the schedule of fees from our schools, and you'll find in your package on page 69 to 75 the letters that we have received from our school planning councils at our schools which have special academies. And before you is a motion to have these approved and schedule fees posted on our website.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion on the motion? Trustee Ferris.
Just a quick reminder that we have 5 more motions to get through. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping us on the ball. Trustee McNally?
I have here what I consider to be a really brilliant letter by an individual from the Delta Optimist. It's dated March 9, 2012, and it's titled, "Academies Give Public Education System a Definite Private Flavor." And you know what, I've heard all the arguments from students and from teachers, how great they are, I get them. But I cannot vote for a fee-based academy. The public education system faces enough challenges at present without adding to its difficulties by rendering that system less and less public. By continuing to develop more and more programs within that same system that require students to pay a fee to be able to participate in them.
Point of order, Madam Chair, this is not a vote of confidence in academies, this is a vote to publish a list on the website.
Thank you. Seeing no further, Trustee Lauren Klinger.
So I'm going to vote against the motion, and because I find I've been poor, and I know what it's like when you have some pride, a little tiny bit of pride, and you have to walk up and ask for an exemption. How many of our low-income families, our vulnerable families would do that? Not many of them. And it really worries me. I can say, you know, $40 might not be a bad amount, but when I look at $125 a month, that's a huge bearing on our most vulnerable families. And unless there's something in here, when I look at all of the letters, of course it says, and I really support the academies, it's not that I don't support them, but when I look at the statements on these letters, for instance, the one from the Esquimalt High School, consistent with district policy, no student will be excluded due to financial hardship. I really believe,
just on a point of order, the motion. The motion is with respect to the schedule of fees. It's not on the issue of whether fees, and that would be a whole evening's worth of debate, which I would be happy to join in with you. But we're discussing the schedule of fees on this motion.
the schedule of fees.
Yes, on page 69 to 75, you'll see the schedule, the sign off. Pardon me? Yes. It's an annual thing, and none of the fees have gone up. We're not talking about the merits or not of whether we charge fees. That's a totally different and time-consuming topic that we should, you may want to wish to bring up at another table, but this motion in front of us right now, as Trustee Ferris pointed out, is strictly in posting the schedule of fees.
It's about transparency.
Thank you.
But along with the schedule of fees comes the dollar figure. Am I not correct?
Having said that, it's been in this district for a while. I fought this in 2006. Well, I lost big time. I continue to say that. But the fees haven't increased. So it's just the schedule of the fees that we're talking about this evening.
So I guess what I'm saying is you can't vote for something without, like, the dollar figure. The schedule is there. Yes, I agree, but along with the schedule is the dollar amount. You can't have one without the other.
And that's fine. It's what the schedule of fees is. It's posting it on the website for people to know what that schedule of fees are. And the motion is just in posting that. It's not with respect to whether or not fees should be charged or how much they should be. So I'm just bringing you back to the intent of the motion, trustees. So you're certainly able to bring forward another motion at another time to discuss the issue of fees if you so choose. Trustee McNally?
So Trustee Ferris' point is well taken in regard to what this motion is actually about, but I'm going to make a leap of ethics here and continue to express my intention to vote against this because by association, I feel that I'm supporting the fee structure if I do go in favor of this motion. And you know what, I could be totally challenged on that, but that's my thing.
Thank you. Thanks for coming this evening. Good luck with the rest of your lobbying.
Yeah, we have to go, but.
Yeah, that's fine. We appreciate that you stayed for the discussion.
Feel free to share emotion.
Okay, so were there any further speakers with respect to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Vicki? All of those opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. I'd like to ask Deputy Superintendent Sherry Bell to take us through the Learning Improvement Fund. If there are going to be any stakeholders to discuss this, I'm just giving you a heads up that we'll let the trustees have their discussion, and then we can enter into the discussion through the chair. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a one-page attachment that was added to the packages that on the table. The trustees, you would have received this on the table when you arrived. At last week's office meeting, I said that I would update you with regards to the Learning Improvement Fund. Consultations have been occurring at the school level. Principals and staffs have been meeting. And what we have available right now is the information that's in front of you. So at this moment, at schools, a tentative plan has been scheduled. And that tentative discussion would have allocations to different areas that they've spoken about at the school level. So what we've done is we've collected that information and put it on a one-pager. Now, I'm going to explain what's there and then tell you the next steps in the process. So, as you know, the option is to look at adding educational assistant time, teaching time, professional development, and then those are the three options. So, at this current time, with the 70% that the schools have been allocated, as a whole school district, approximately 39% has been allocated so far to educational assistant time, 59.16 to teaching time, 1.59 to professional development, and 0.25 has been not allocated thus far. So where we are in the process now is that this information has been sent to the GBTA this afternoon, and they received each school's, not their plans, basically what they want to spend money on, their tentative spending. What we're doing right now is we're collecting and going through the consultation plans for each school. And so with that, we will again compile that information and give it to the GBTA by Thursday. And then Superintendent Gateman and I are going to be meeting with the GBTA on Monday to take a look at the information that we've shared with them and do our consultation with the GBTA. So they'll have as much information as we have as far as what has occurred at the school level with consultation.
Thank you. The Superintendent?
I just want to impress upon everybody that at this point this is just tentative because we still have to repeat this process in the fall when we actually know which students will have in our classes and we have a much better idea of what our classes will look like.
Thanks for that clarification. It's important because we just don't know what our numbers are. I have Trustee Alpha and then Trustee Horseman, and I have Brad, and I'll get to you after the trustees have spoken. Thanks. Trustee Alpha.
So I just have a question because I'm a little confused. Who was the consultation done with at the school level?
Chair. At each school, there's three different groups that they principal can meet, where they can consult with the staff rep, the whole staff, and the staff committee. And it's different at each school. Many schools, it was all three. It really depended on the school, and so that's the consultation information that we're compiling right now and sharing with the GBT.
Okay. Just so that you get an idea of the timelines, that the reports were due at the end of Friday, and today is Monday. So really tight timelines to gather information. Do you understand that, Trustee?
So, can you mean the reports from the consultation at the school level that we're doing on Friday?
Friday at the end of the day, so they haven't been fully, we're sifting through all of the information, trying to get information to the GBT as quickly as possible. Trustee Roseman?
Thanks. I just wanted to get some clarification, but would the same process be followed in September, or would the same percentage of allocation be? So would you be asking the staff again in September about the last 30%, or is this on allocation and 70% is now and 30% in September?
70% has been allocated at this point. It's tentative. We still have to consult with the GBTA, and we have the 30% that will be left.
So my question is, what's the process for deciding how the 30% is spent?
The regulation's really clear. It's consultation again at the school level through the GS. It repeats itself in the fall.
And it'll give us an opportunity to have regular reports to see how things are working if we so decide. So I have Trustee Lori Kazunga, then I have Trustee McNally, Brad Eric, still on the list.
Thank you. So when I look at the teaching time of 59.16, and we were kind of looking at some of the schools, and when we were initially looking, and we were saying that would probably be one EA in the school. When we first were looking at some of the numbers, I'm just wondering, what does this actually mean in a school, 59.16? Are we looking at half-time? Are we looking at a three-quarter time position? Generally speaking, because I know it'll depend on each school.
And it is exactly that. It's generally speaking, it's different at each school. Some secondary schools added blocks. Some elementary schools added learning support time. It really depended on the school. So it really varies from school to school.
But no school was allocated a full-time teacher, like one FTE.
No, what the schools were allocated was the funding that we went through, and then they decided as a school. The regulation's pretty clear. There has to be school-based discussions, and so at the school level they decided how to use that money.
Trustee Nor and then Brad.
Thank you.
I just had you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Trustee Nor, it's my error. Trustee McNally, then Trustee Nor, then Brad.
Thanks, Chair. Through the Chair, my question to the Deputy Superintendent. This document is prepared with like sort of an inconsistent term here. We've got education assistants, those are education assistant people, 39%. But then we've got teaching time. And I guess just to keep it consistent, I'd like to have it say teachers. And so what would that translate to?
Through the Chair, I was just using language in the regulation. They don't use the language EAs. This is language from the regulation.
Sorry, thank you for that. But if I may follow up, I guess my question is that if I were to take this as looking at, just a group of 100 items, and 39 of those items would be education assistants, right? Because we're talking percentage here.
Yes, it's a percentage.
Okay, but then if I look at teachers, we're not going to get 59 teachers out of this. So it's the terminology between the assistants and the time.
There's a spelling error. It should be assistants with a CD instead of a TS.
Really? Thank you.
This is, and again, this is just a percentage. At this particular point in time, I'll be updating the board. Okay.
Trustee Nor.
So when I look at this, I see that At one point, we talked about a minimum of 12.5% for 12.8% for educational assistance, and so this is much more. So my concern is that it was a remedy to the teachers' legal challenge, and therefore we were hoping to have more teaching time, and it looks like there's been a shift in the amount of the lift fund to a greater portion of the time. That's what it looks like to me. Is that correct?
It's 39%.
It's more than, yeah, the 12.8. So am I?
I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, okay, I have one other question, but please go ahead.
Yes, please. It's important to remember that these were decisions made at the school, and they had their options as to whether or not they want to put it into professional development, into EA time, or into increased teacher block. But we can only allocate the dollars. We're not, this table is not involved in the discussion at the school level.
Right. So I'm just trying to understand it here. So we go to have a review of the form of the Learning Improvement Fund with the GBTA after everything has been decided. So no. So how can it change from this point going forward when it's already been determined at the school level? No? Okay, I just want to try to understand.
The regulation is very, very clear. There has to be consultation at the school level. And that's what's been happening. The schools are making tentative plans. And they give us that information. We then give it to the GBTA and meet with the GBTA. The regulation says the superintendent creates the plan in consultation with the union. And so we have to have something to discuss with the union. And so that's what we have. We will, by Thursday, give the GBTA what the schools have come up with. The GBTA will look at it. The superintendent, as per the regulation, then meets with the GBTA and a spending plan is created. You have to have something to discuss, and so that's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That's the first time I've heard the word tentative.
It's on there 3 times.
It is.
That was intentional.
My apologies.
Tentative was intentional.
Okay, thanks.
I have Trustee Leonard, Trustee Alpha, and Brad.
I guess I'm confused in the regard that I get that the schools could have allocated 87.5% to teaching time had they chose. They chose not to. They chose to allocate it as we see in front of us because we've given them the autonomy to do that because the regulations tell us to do that. So the fact that there's not as much teaching time here as some people think there should be is because the schools decided they didn't want 87.5% teaching time either. Because we allowed the schools to make the local decision rather than us being top down. I think it's good the way it was intended. I'm glad it was written like that. And this is what the schools have told them.
Thanks, Elaine. And the superintendent would like to make a point.
And I agree. I think that the point that the deputy superintendent was making was that nothing's confirmed until we hear the rationale for change. If there will be a rationale for change, it's possible that it won't be, but you're absolutely correct. That was the process, is the way it was written, so that each separate school staff had the opportunity to talk about what is needed for their particular school. They brought it forward. We will then share the findings and the method of consultation with the GBTA. But in the end, we will also remember how the decisions were formed.
Thank you, Trustee Alpha, and then Brad.
It's all consent.
Thank you. You're on, Brad.
I just had 2 comments to make. There's actually two groups you have to consult with. QB 947 is the other signatory to this deal. The other part is, the 12.8% is something we see as separate from the other part of it. While it looks like a group of money is going toward EAs, the 12.8% that we've carved out, we see quite differently as just generic EA time. We see it as something that is not necessarily going to occur in front of kids in classrooms. We see this as consultation time, as preparation time, and a lot of that we intend to see being spent in that direction. So I just want to make it clear, we don't see it as 100%, and we want to see the LIF fund. We see it as two different funds. One of it is allocated toward us, and another is allocated in the direction. But it didn't seem the discussion looked that way. It seemed like the discussion was looking at it as 100% of this fund, and we're signing off 13% of it separately.
Thanks, Brad. It's a very good point, and I'd like to have the superintendent expand on that, please, to clarify.
So I just want to say that I think that is a really crucial point, because at one time we expected the LIF funds to come in a separate package that would have the dollars that Brad was speaking of. That's not actually how it turned out to be, but that's how we expected it up until the moment that we actually found out exactly how much money we were getting, and that it was lumped together with a caveat of 12.8%. But I think that what Brad says has to be heard, because we did see it as a different pot of money for the longest time. And even when, on April 23rd, when we took our tour through the LIS, there was some confusion because we had all heard the same thing, that there was going to be a separate pot of money to talk about exactly what Brad is speaking of. But that's not how the regulation reads now, unfortunately.
Yes, Brad, follow up?
Sure. In fact, the three options that you can spend money on definitely include preparation and meeting time. So you definitely can have money.
Oh, absolutely. I wasn't trying to say.
Okay.
No.
I think we're on the same page. I have Trustee Horsman and Trustee Edith Moore.
Just further to that page, the board did approve an allocation to hire more EAs, and we weren't specific about how that money would be spent. So I don't know if that's been decided on or not, but in fact, this money could represent EAs in front of kids, because meeting time and everything could come out of the other money, or whatever. But that other money that we approved is there as a quantity that I don't know whether, in the budget process.
That was
If we weren't specific about how it was spent, we just said it was for EAs.
Yeah, so that was a surplus you're talking about? Yes. But that was
part of the budget.
Yeah, that was different, and the parameters are different than the legislation.
Yes, so anyway, I just wanted to say that although the legislation has, strict parameters, our budget allocation didn't. So one way or another, it'll be covered.
Thanks, Trustee Horsman. Trustee Laura.
So just following up with Brad's comment then, and if we're looking at 70% of our LIS with this current formula, then really what we're looking at for any kind of adjustments in September is really only 8.1%. Well, because he was just talking about 12.8%, am I correct? That 12.8%
comes out of 100%.
Yeah, with QB, right? So looking at 70%, right? So then there's a balance of 8.1% that would be rectified for September.
31% of the LIF is available for September.
But 12.8 out of that is strictly for QB. Right?
This 39%, 12.8 is QB.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
But that comes out.
Okay, let's let the superintendent clarify this. I understand Trustee Lauren Kahunga's confusion, and I think it's a very important point that we understand the distinction.
12.8 of the total amount. So 12.8% of the 1.92 million. We chose, because the regulation said that we could hold back 30% to see what is necessary. Okay, we got it. Okay, I won't continue.
Okay. Thank you very much, Superintendent. Seeing no further hands, I believe we are concluded at this point, because I know we will be talking about WIP on a regular basis. But I'd like to now move into do we have any reports from trustee representatives? I didn't have anybody put their names up forward with the approval of agenda, so I'm assuming not. And zipping right into new business, notice of motions. I'm trying to hustle along there, Tom. F1, trustee Nora, please.
Thank you. F1 needs budget district website. So moved by me and seconded by trustee McNally. That the Board of Education of School District 61 place the needs budget on the main page of the district website with a link to the advocacy page. But I think we talked about an advocacy button and the chair's letter to the Minister of Education, and that the board hold a news conference to explain the details of the needs budget. Further, that a press release be generated. So we put a lot of work into this, and while it is not meticulously calculated budget, it certainly reflects with a great deal of it connects realistically to the needs in the classroom. And I think it's really valuable that we let our community and parents and partner groups know. And so it's just looking through policy A251. Says, as a trustee, I will encourage active cooperation by citizens, organizations, and media communication to help all people of the communities have the facts about the current school operations. And I think this is a really critical document to understand the facts of what we're dealing with. It's simply sitting here talking about the lift fund, and it gets complicated. It's a very simple visual, that chart, and I think it's very effective. Under policy 251, Trustees Code of Ethics, it says that I will strongly advocate for public education. So if we bury this document, every page it goes deeper into the website, the less people will have access to it. So even if we put it on the front web page for a month, and then we've got that advocacy button and people could click on it and see it, I think this is what we need to do. We put a lot of work into it, and so let's give it the profile it deserves. And it says here also, as a trustee, I will strive to ensure that the education system will provide the best quality of education possible for our students. This can be done to a more effective degree if we have our community understanding a little more around the detail of our underfunding. And so I could go on with some other policies and so on, but I encourage everyone here to support the motion so that we raise the profile of the work that's been done in this needs budget committee.
Thanks, Trustee Nora. I'm actually going to just speak first, just on a couple of points of clarification. We just passed C2D, which is the needs budget we're referring to in your motion, along with the letter to the minister. But it's clearly the needs budget was developed by our educational partners. The needs budget is not actually a product of the board. It's a product of information that we brought forward, collated, and determined that this is what our community has said. So I just want to clarify that, because I think the wording is contradictory to the motion we just passed, as I said, under C2B. Secondly, just a minor thing where you're talking about the advocacy button. It's just like if you go onto Board of Education, you want to look at policy and regs, you know that drop down? It now just has, in that drop down is advocacy, and you just click on that. It takes you right to that page. So it's Very, very simple.
Yeah, I was thinking it was going to be separate and standalone, just so it would be really visually, so that hasn't happened yet.
The advocacy page? The advocacy page?
The advocacy, I thought it was going to be just a standalone button or flag on the main webpage. I think we talked about that at one point. Obviously, it's on the drop-down.
Yeah, it's on the drop-down, then that's what we thought it was. Anyways, those were just points of clarification. Are there any further speakers to this motion? Trustee Leonard and Trustee Horsman.
The budget that we passed tonight and the letter to the minister will be on the website in our minutes. I have no problem if you put it on the advocacy page, just saying that it's from the stakeholders. I do have a problem trying to hold a press conference and trying to explain the fact that it's not generated by the board, it's not a board document. Our stakeholders have said what their wish list is, and this is what it is. And I'll go back to what I said before. So the advocacy button I don't have a problem with, but if the last part of the motion was dropped off, I would support it. But in this one, when she said here, I just can't support that part because I don't really think I don't want to say that we laughed out of the paper, but it would take a lot of explanation to figure out how 171 teachers here and then 50 teachers there and 40 teachers there were something that we've had to cut in the last 15 years. It sounds to me like you have to say it's what we would like to have in the system, and every other school district would like to have that in the system. We don't wish for that. You wave your magic wand. I think it's kind of hard to be sensible when you're sitting across from the reporter and he's saying, okay, let's have this conversation now.
So, Trustee Leonard, if I may, are you suggesting that you're offering a friendly amendment to Trustee Nor's motion to say, right, period, right, and just take out.
I'm moving that and amend the motion.
Is there a seconder to that? Or first of all, did Trustee Nor, do you accept it as a friendly amendment, or do we have to put it to motion?
Yes, well, I think that it's already there from the motion above.
So
we already have it.
Wouldn't be on the
As
The letter would be on the advocacy page because
all of the board chairs' letters are
on the advocacy page.
I mean, I shouldn't say all of the letters. All of our letters to the Ministry of Education as directed by the board are on the advocacy page.
So this would be supporting document for the letter.
So the budget chart would be there too. Yeah. So I think that I have a sense that that's what most people around the board would prefer. So that's fine. Let's go with what we can get here.
So would you be kind enough then to read out what you're accepting as an amendment, what your amended motion would be?
That the Board of Education of School District 61 placed the needs budget on
the district budget.
On the district advocacy page.
Along with the
chair's letter.
All right, along with the chair's letter. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so that's a friendly
Along with
amendment.
the chair's letter to the Minister of Education.
And I think, just further, I think there's been some discussion that, again, that we'll use that potentially as a startup for next year's budget. Are there any further discussions on Trustee Nor's amended motion? Diane McNally.
I'm terribly sorry, but yes, I do have a comment. I'm not going to vote for the amendment because I think that leaving the press release in is the district's opportunity to speak again in an advocacy role for what we really do need. I take the comments that were made previously as good comments, but it is an opportunity for advocacy, and I don't think we should pass them up.
Trustee Horsman, did you have a comment, or you were speaking there in between, so I don't want to assume that.
Actually, I managed to insert what I was.
Okay, that's what I was hoping you would say that. You spoke out of turn, I accepted that. Trustee McAvoy.
I'm just going to say that the press release doesn't guarantee any kind of press coverage, but what I would hope, and I trust, and every time I've heard our chair speak in the media, which is frequently,
she speaks to these issues. And I would hope that that would continue and continue along the lines of what we've done in the community here. So press releases don't generate, but what I say is the constant work the chair is doing does generate that public discussion. So I would say commend you for doing that and to continue doing that.
Thanks. And actually, there's an article in the news group with respect to the needs budget being passed. So it's already done. So seeing no further hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amended motion?
No, of the amendment. First.
Okay, of the amendment. We've got, unanimous. So back to the main motion, which includes the amendment. All those in favor? Unanimous. So that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to F2, Trustee North.
Thank you. So F2, that the Board of Education, it should say of School District 61, generate a class size and composition report for our, and I'd like to make a friendly amendment, October 2012 regular board meeting. So,
do you have a seconder, sorry?
Yes, and have a seconder. Trustee.
Did you get that?
McNally. Thank you. So as a trustee, we have a responsibility to make decisions around educational and budget issues. The information on class size and composition will be collated at the school level, the classrooms, and by the administration. And I think it's extremely necessary to have that data in order to determine the effectiveness of the placement of all our staff in various schools and classrooms, and in particular to determine the effectiveness of the lift as well. So I feel that it is not possible as a trustee to effectively evaluate the use of the budget and the assignments in the schools and pass the motion on the budget without understanding the impact in the classrooms. And for that reason, I put this motion forward.
Thank you, Trustee Nord. I have Trustee Ferris and Trustee Leonard.
To my knowledge, we don't release composition information, but my understanding is that our superintendent does give a class size report to the board every year after the September 30th deadline. Perhaps you could speak to that, Mr. Superintendent.
Because people remember, I gave a class size report based upon my duties under Bill 33. It was certainly not within my plans to do it this year because Bill 33 will not be in existence. To do it in the upcoming year. Could do it if I was asked to do it. We've never done a report that states how many, a class composition report. And even for the class size report, I gave a report on classes over 30. I didn't give a report on every single class in the school district. So I would need some instruction as to what you were looking for, every single class in the district in a binder that would spell out how many students in each class. If that's what you're asking for, that could be done after September 30th.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. And Trustee Leonard? I know I said Trustee Ferris Leonard, and you're next.
So Superintendent answered most of my questioning. So if you're giving us, if you were to provide us with a binder with every single class, are you identifying the classes? So it's not something we're bringing to a public meeting?
No, I could identify the classes, there would be no issue if we were talking about class size. I could not identify the classes, nor have we ever looked at class composition per class and put it out in a public report. And the ministry that used to do that is no longer engaged in doing that. So I just want everybody to be aware that this is, I mean, this isn't what we normally do as the school district.
So to follow up then, where we've received information in previous years that said the average between grades 4 to 7, the average class size is X, and the average class size in K to 3 is this, and those are the numbers that we no longer will be getting.
Unless you request it,
okay.
and then we could do that, absolutely.
Thank you.
I just want, without pushing the issue, I just want to separate the class size and the class composition.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Trustee Alpha, and then I'm going to make a comment, and Trustee Horseman and Warren Committee.
So, in my first year here on the board, which was last term, I spent 6 hours with the superintendent of schools going over class size and composition, and I actually was going over specific classes as to the composition within those classes, which actually I found very helpful in forming my decision-making processes throughout that year. I followed that up. The second year that I was on the board, I met with the superintendent and very graciously went over the binders of class size and composition. I followed that up. The third year that I was on the board, I went over class size and composition with the superintendent, and I don't know how trustees could make responsible decisions without being aware of that information. We are dealing with the money that is coming from the government in the LIT fund. We need to know what the schools and the classes look like. That doesn't mean that that information needs to be public, but as an elected member of a public board, I need the information to be able to inform my decision making around the board. So I think this is very important information to have. It definitely, I don't have any problem with it being private information for trustees only when it comes to issues around the privacy of an individual. I totally understand that, but I don't know how we make decisions without having that information.
Thank you, and the superintendent would like to respond.
With all due respect, and I remember those meetings with you, there was never a booklet that had, don't rest, the number of students in each class and the number of students that were designated beside it. What you saw were forms that dealt with classes that had more than 3. There wasn't a booklet that had class size and composition, and we only did it with students, with classes that had more than 3, and it didn't include things like gifted and ESL and things like that. So I know you do. I'm using it so that I can just say this out loud. I don't want people to think that I didn't remember that.
Meeting the needs of the students in the classroom. There's only so much teacher face time with the students, and we're looking at schools that are asking for teaching time for EAs and things like that. And I think to make those decisions, it really helps to know what we're working with in our district coming, as the enrollment comes in September 30th. You know, like not that we're going to unilaterally, but at least then we have some idea of whether or not those classes are being supported. And that speaks to our advocacy, it speaks to our planning, it speaks to other stuff we put in place.
Thanks, Trustee Alpha. I just want to bring some information to the attention of the trustees that this district actually changed, took composition out, and Bill 22 was a result, and we got the LIP as a result in order to not identify children through IEPs, but rather once we knew where those children were, we could attempt to resource the classrooms that not only they but all the other students were in. So this motion, in a sense, is contrary by having composition in it to our previous position and motion that's been passed. So I just bring that to your attention and for your consideration. I won't be supporting this motion as it's written. I will be, and I know that we will be getting reports on a regular basis from our superintendent and the deputy superintendent on how the LIP is working, or where the gaps are, and what we need to continue to advocate for. Thank you. I now have Trustee Horton.
Thank you. Well, as a number of people have said, it's not appropriate to be asking in this motion for the composition. So, however, I think it is appropriate for us to ask for a report on class sizes that are over 30, because that is a cost factor. As yet, you know, the ministry outlined that teachers who have more than 30 students in the class are entitled to, you know, blah, at their choice, and we have no way of knowing how that's going to be paid for, but I think it would be useful information for us to know whether there's a sizable number of that advocacy would be. So I'd like to propose an amendment to this motion, and the amendment would say that the Board of Education School District 61 generate a report of class sizes over 30, and that's it. Oh, for our October meeting. So take away and the composition report, and just say that the Board of Education School District 61 generate a report of class sizes over 30 for our October 2020.
Or can you just say generate a class size report?
Well, as the superintendent pointed out, if you say generate a class size report, you're talking about every class in the district.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
We don't really need that. What we need to know is what is our liability. To what extent do we have classes over 30? What's our liability?
Okay, so if you could read that proposed amendment and direct it to Trustee Norn for her.
So I decline the amendment. Someone else wants to bring that motion forward, but I feel very strongly about both aspects of it. Thank you.
So I'm looking for a seconder for my amendment. My amendment is generate a report of, and then put an S on class sizes and add over 30. Take away and composition report, and replace September with October, which I believe wasn't in there.
I'll second. So we're now discussing the amendment, which is can you read it out, Trustee?
Of class sizes over 30. And take away the rest of it up to for our October.
Yeah. I see Mr. Bird, I see Trustee McNally, so and I see Trustee Lauren. So, John, I will get to you as soon as I had the trustee speak. So we're speaking to the amendment right now. So I have Diane and then Edith.
So I'll be
voting against this amendment. In my opinion, it completely, well, not completely, but it does in a significant way change the intent of the original motion, so I can't support it.
Trustee Lauren Kahunga, and Trustee Alpha, and then pardon me, John Bird.
I'm speaking against the motion as well, because I really believe that, and I saw it in my previous life at SD63,
that it makes a big difference. And when we take a look at students who have IEPs, behavior and ESL, students that really generates the support that's needed for that classroom. So without having those, that information, it's pretty, how do you determine what kind of support that you need if you don't have that information? It's pretty difficult to decide whether you need EA support, whether you need speech and language, what do you need in there. So, so I think that without it, it would be pretty fruitful or useless to be able to say, well, I'm just going to blindly put in 0.5 of an EA just because there's 32 students in that class.
Thank you, Trustee. I have Trustee Alpha and then John Bird.
Well, I'm definitely speaking against the amendment because it profoundly changes the motion. And I'm really sad to be sitting at a board that is making children with special needs disappear. It really is, the government has been trying to make children with special needs disappear for 10 years. They want them to disappear because then funding that is needed to support their learning will also disappear. And now the board is colluding with the government in making these children disappear. And since I've advocated for children with special needs extremely strongly for...
Trustee, I'm just going to stop you for a moment.
I'm not finished.
No, I understand, but I just want to remind you to speak respectfully. You've just made a comment that this board is colluding. That's a pretty strong comment. I respect your right to make a comment, but please know this board needs to be speaking with respect and not making allegations on the board's integrity. So I'm giving you a warning. Thank you.
Thank you. And I still stand by it. I do believe
that will be noted.
Thank you. I do believe that we are colluding with the government's desire to make these students with special needs disappear. And I will have the courage and I will have the strength constantly, no matter what threat is leveled against me, to speak for children with special needs. And that's what I'm doing at this moment, and nobody can muzzle me on this one.
Trustee Alpha, I just have to make a point to you that when you make those comments, you're inferring that nobody has the passion or believes in teachers or children the way you do, and I think you should take a look around the table and the amount of time and energy that's put in to this district and these children before you make those sorts of comments and take yourself and put yourself up on such a high pedestal.
Yes,
I'd like to now
I
call
would
on,
also say that I think
I
we actually need to make sure that we're not making children.
Trustee Alpha, you are John Bird, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to speak to one part of the amendment, and that's regarding the class sizes over 30. One of the things that disappeared with Bill 22 is class averages. And we had a chat about that at a special meeting at BC PAC last week. And the one thing that class averages provided was the ability over a district really to create some equity, because not all classes had to be the same size. And I think that that just looking at class sizes over 30 oversimplifies the problem. If you're looking at the needs of all classrooms and you're looking at the average resource requirements of your classrooms, you really need to know not only the averages, but the distribution, which is the reports we've had in the past. We've seen the class averages, and we've seen in graph charts how many are at 26, 27, 28, 29. That type of information is useful. So I wouldn't want to see that disappear. Notwithstanding, I agree with the second part of the amendment.
Are there any further speakers to the amended motion? Thank you, Trustee Rosen.
Thank you. Whether this amendment passes or not, the board is still going to need a report of class sizes over 30 because there's a liability issue that the board needs to be aware of. So whether we are made aware of it through this amended motion or not, it's going to be an issue. So I just feel that people need to realize the reality of that situation, and I'm not going to make further comment.
The Would you have to bring a motion forward to the next meeting then?
No, it's just going to be, it's proper administration to let the board know what its liabilities are. We don't need to be moving motions to find that out. I'm simply saying that this issue that I focused on in my amendment will not go away simply because the amendment is not passed. It's still something the board needs to be aware of.
Mr. Burden, before you make your comments, I just need some clarifications on your previous comment, because I was writing something and trying to listen, and I'm not very good at multitasking this late in the evening. I heard you say that you supported the latter part of the amendment, but not the first part. Is that?
Yeah, there was a part about removing the composition piece.
Okay, so you're supporting the amendment which takes the composition?
I'm only, what I was speaking to was just the amendment as it related to the class size. I didn't speak about the other part.
Okay, and so were you, I'm sorry, I must have missed something. Anyways,
You wanted to report class averages instead of class.
And class size,
So to follow up, in the class size report, you would not only have the averages, you would have the numbers at each side of the classroom. So the information that Trustee Horson was looking for would be in there as well. It would be a comprehensive class size report.
is there a way? I know, and we aren't taking an amendment from all our stakeholders have voiced their own voice, but I appreciate your input. So you closed. So the question, I'm calling the question on the amended motion, which is on the amendment, which is on the screen behind us. All those in favor of the amended motion? Of the amendment. All those in favor? All those against? The motion is defeated. So we're back to the main motion. And is there anything further on the main motion? Mr. Bird.
We're still on. When VCPAC put forward the Classroom Support Fund document, what we were really recommending is sync to the needs of all students by moving away from categorizing students and moving instead to categorizing our required resources. When I look at the Learning Improvement Fund and the details in it, we see the consultation has to be about the number of students assigned to a class, the learning needs of those students, including, and so not separate, but including, the resource requirements of students with diagnosed special needs. It doesn't say the number of students with special needs. It talks about the resources. It also talks about the experience and capacity of the teachers in the class to teach those students. And this speaks to the Learning Improvement Fund being used for professional development to the extent that would be required. Classes, when they're organized in our schools, it's a pretty complicated process. Just ask any parent that tried to ask, how do you do that? It's pretty tough to get a comprehensive answer because the discussions and iterations of it are very, very complicated. And within a school, you will have classes not only that have different levels of needs within it, but a lot of tailoring to the teacher and the student combination, what that classroom then looks like. And I know these discussions go on all the time. So to take something as simplistic as class composition, looking at it here at the district level, and trying to determine that from that information, which you would have to believe that every kid with special needs is identical, otherwise the information can't possibly be useful, but that you will be able then to determine, better than the people in the school that are doing this, to figure out who should be in a classroom. I personally, I can't make any sense of that. So the composition piece in this motion is not just irrelevant. It actually leads you to making bad decisions, in my opinion, because you don't actually know the needs that are in that class, but you think you do.
Just hear myself on the speaker list, and then Trustee Laura coming here. I just want to remind trustees, and we're getting to late in the hour. People are getting tired, and a lot of us have already had a full day starting early. And we don't require a motion to ask for a report. We can just we can ask for it without motion. And considering the discussion that we've had here, I know how Trustee North, how strongly you feel, and others. I hear what Trustee Horseman is saying, and the issue about averages and size of a class. We have time. We don't have to rush into this. And I think that we can take some time to think about those things and then ask for a report after we've had consideration, after we have to know what our numbers are, how the lift is working, get the class size report or averaging or whatever, but we don't require a motion.
Well, there is a motion on the floor.
No, I'm just reminding people that you don't, so you don't have to support this motion, was my point. And Trustee is
We're back to the main motion on that point.
That's right, we're back to the main motion, not this.
So I'd like to propose an amendment, another amendment to the motion. So we'll wait until she gets to that here. So I would like to propose an amendment that School District 61 generate a class size and composition report for our trustees to review by October 13th and take the rest out and not at the regular board meeting.
What's the difference?
Well, because then it's not presented. It's available if trustees want to go and take a look at it, rather than having it at a public board meeting. I mean, just following up with, John's concern and a few others, but that it be at least available. I don't necessarily agree with his comments. I think that the more informed that we are as trustees, and if you've been a school teacher, you understand what composition is and what that makeup is and how you put supports and how you advocate for the kids that are in the classroom. So, but I think that rather than making it public, if people are concerned about that and identifying children that are based in the classrooms, that we just have it available for our trustees to review and to sit down with our superintendent and to be able to ask questions, because I know I found it really useful. So that's my amendment.
I don't know, trustee.
Yeah, I accept that amendment.
Okay, so we're now back to, you got the amendment now, Vicki?
So the amendment would be that the Board of Education of School District 61 generate a class size and composition report for trustees to review by October the 13th, 2012, and take out the regular board meeting on.
What's October 13th? Is that our last meeting?
Sorry, by October 30th. So it gives a month after the September 30th deadline.
We've got a second, you've accepted as a friendly amendment, so discussion on the new amendment to the main motion.
Well, if it's a friendly amendment, can we just look at the whole motion then? I think.
We can.
Okay.
So is there any discussion on the motion as amended in a friendly amendment?
I support it 100%. I think this will be important and essential information for our staff.
Trustee Alpha?
Pardon
me a second. Did you have your hand up, Elaine? Yeah. Okay, sorry, it's Elaine first, and then Catherine.
So the chair said that we could give direction if we wanted something at a later date, so I'm not in favor of this motion. I don't, the composition part of that, I don't think that, as has been discussed by a few people, it's something that we need, or something that it's a lot of work for trustees if they want to go and
3 or 4 trustees who want to spend some time and go look at it. It's a lot of work to generate these things. So I'm not in support of this motion. I think we ask our staff, and if we want to have a conversation with our senior staff that are in school, they can pretty well give us most of the information that we need to know without having a document like this, which we can't share with the public, which is then, I'm not supporting it.
Thank you, Trustee Leonard. Trustee Alpha, please.
Well, I'm going to vote in favor of this, and I'm looking forward to having a chat with John with this information.
Okay, Trustee Horseman.
Well, I'm concerned about this for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's the staff time to compose the report. There's the possibility that the composition aspect could be leaked. And there is the issue of people going in individually and spending hours at a time with a guided tour of the report. So I'm very, very concerned on several levels. The superintendent is doing 2 jobs at the moment. He simply doesn't have time to spend 6 hours with anybody going over a report. So the process has got I have some real problems with the process. If the superintendent were to create a report like that and present it at an in-camera board meeting where we all came in early and looked at the material, at least he would only be spending a certain amount of his time going over the report once. We simply don't have the time for people to be accessing hours of individual, we just don't have the time anymore. And it's been an incredible drain on staff. We've already lost 1 staff, senior staff, and we can't afford to lose any more. So I'm a little worried about the implications of the whole thing. And I'd like to move the amendment, takeaway and composition report. We've already been there.
We've been there.
Yeah, I already can't do it a second.
Well, I had more in the first one. I was asking for class sizes over 3 because it's not exactly the same thing.
Yeah, you're going over and over.
It's all very well for us to say we need to be informed, but you need to receive the information in a way that doesn't cripple the district. And I think that individual consultation would, especially with the number of hours that were mentioned. So what's my alternative to vote against it?
Yeah, we can still give direction. I'd like to remind trustees, it's 20 to 11, Edith, I see you, and we still have 3 motions, and I'm on the, yes, I know, but we need to entertain whether we're going to go past 11 o'clock unless you think that we're going to get 3 motions done, although we're including this one, because we're still not through this one by 11.
Well, let's just work on motions and see.
What's the majority of the vote?
I actually have an amendment to the motion.
I have a question about whether we go further. I just want to test the waters with all of them. Trustee Leonard?
I move that we do not go past 11 o'clock.
All those in favor, this is not debatable, all those in favor of not going past 11 o'clock? Okay, so we won't go past 11 o'clock, so we've got 20 minutes.
Chair, can I just look at that? I'm following you to look at that vote. Can I see it, please? Go on.
No.
Did you have to vote?
You didn't call this.
No, I said all those in favor. I didn't get to oppose because all of a sudden Diane's head came up and she said, what did you do? So all in favor of not going past 11.
We can report
Yeah,
out.
okay.
Report out.
Yeah, but we have, but we've got, yeah, but we need to have, okay, so all those that were in favor of not going past 11?
Right.
Elaine?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 5, because we're down to 8, so we need a majority. Okay, so those opposed, for the record. Thank you. The motion has been passed. We'll be adjourning at 11. Back to you, Trustee Alpha.
I have an amendment on the motion that we add after to review at an in-camera meeting after October 30th, 2012. So we just stick words in after review at an in-camera meeting, change by to after.
So what's the purpose of that amendment?
Because Trustee Horstman said that she would be more comfortable having this presented at an in-camera meeting by the superintendent, so that people aren't traipsing into his office one after another to do the review. So Trustee Horstman requested that we do it all together at an in-camera meeting, so as not to overburden John. Well, actually, I've been president at the table when we have, but anyway.
The point is you're offering an amendment and it needs to go to that. Deborah?
I accept it.
Okay, so you're accepting that and you're speaking to this new... Yes, please. So we got two amendments in the main motion, right?
So to review at...
Or it's a friendly amendment to the original one, so we only have two. We have an amendment and the main. Is that correct? Okay.
Generate a class size and composition report for trustees to review at an in-camera meeting after October 30th, 2012.
Sorry,
Okay, so we're okay. We've got it up there, and we know that we're discussing the friendly amendment to the main motion, right?
Yes.
Are there any?
No, call question.
Okay, I'm calling the question on the amendment. All those in favor?
Well, it's friendly amendment. She accepted it, so we can actually...
Yes, on the whole motion. Yeah.
Motion.
So the motion, yes. We're going to the main motion. All those in favor of approving this motion? 4. All those opposed? Okay, so it's been defeated. Okay, so our next item on the agenda is another motion from Trustee Nora. However, this one should be very, pardon me? It should be very quick because we've actually sent out, first of all, Trustee Nora, would you please read your motion?
That the Board of Education School District 61 send out to every school-based PAC a copy of the full current seismic report with a list of the school designations.
So I'm happy to report, I think that we just followed through with the report. So what Deputy Superintendent Sherry Bell has already done is she has sent the list along with the full report from the ministry to all the principals with instructions asking them to meet with their PACs to have full discussion and about this, and highlighting why some schools are not on this list, because we want them to understand it's ministry generated based on their information, and because some schools aren't on the list doesn't mean that they've been forgotten or anything. And further, a copy of the report and the list was also sent to BC PAC for them to determine what they want to do with their PAC. So this has been done.
So
it's redundant.
Yeah. So the principals will report to the parents.
They will have a discussion. They'll bring the deputy superintendent one.
The email asks principals to share the information.
I did have one addition to after after Michelle Milne at our last ops meeting spoke about, well, so what is the advocacy we're going to do? I went away and thought about it, and I thought we could actually add to this motion and a letter be sent to the ministry requesting that all H1 schools be remediated immediately. Okay, I'll bring it to Hobbs then.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. It's important that we have the proper discussion, not rush through these things. So you're taking that, you're withdrawing that motion then based on because the direction's already been taken?
Yes. And then I'll bring up some other information at the ops around the fact that PACs are funding the emergency supplies and just dealing with the whole issue on a little more extensive basis.
Great, that's fine. Yes?
I just wondered when Sherry sent out that email, I'm just wondering about the date that the email was sent out to the principals.
We followed up after this direction that was taken. We don't have to do all our business through motion. There's direction.
But it sometimes helps to spin it off, and I guess that is my question. When was it done in relationship to when the motion was put on the agenda? Sometimes it helps.
Oh, but that doesn't say that when it's done doesn't mean when it was discussed either. So, anyways, Trustee Leonard?
I was just going to say that in my 15 years on the board, at each time a new seismic indicator has come out and a bunch of schools have been listed, we have given them the information principle. They have shared it with PACs. So over the course of the years, we've had different PACs here saying that their school is at risk and those schools have been remediated. Then 4 or 5 years later, there's another list. And so it is something we do share with principals on a regular basis, and they share with the PACs.
Okay, so we're on to F4 now with 11 minutes, and it's over to you, Trustee McNally.
I understand that the minister has reinstated some courses in terms of funding them after public outcry, but we've had presentations here from students through the alternative programs who've come back to school through re-engagement, and I'm just wondering about cutting any funding to any class. It's cutting off access to an adult learner to possibility of reconnection with lifelong learning, and I just don't see it as a really good education policy. The fact that the minister has come up with this really interesting completion requirement to pay the district out for that particular enrollee has it leaves a lot of questions. It's not being defined. The completion part is not being defined yet. So I don't think the minister thought this through very well, frankly. He did send a letter on June 8, 2012 to all district superintendents of schools and their secretary treasurers. Point 1 is he's reinstating 4 or 5 classes. But the second point is develop a formal review process to consider additions and deletions to the EG course list. And in my opinion, he needs to not delete anything and get the funding in place the way it was, and then have a look at number 2. After that, you might want to make some recommendations. He's coming at it backwards.
Thank you, Trustee McNally, Superintendent Secretary Treasurer. And then Trustee Gordon.
Just to clarify, and maybe it's understood by everybody around the table, but this does not affect non-graduated students regardless of their age.
Trustee Worthman, and then Trustee Lynn, and then Trustee Ferris.
I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I think that it is at any time that someone wants to come back to school, we should have the doors open. And although the list that was put out by the ministry is pretty comprehensive, it doesn't specify, for example, ESL learners. And so there are things that we offer currently that are funded that are not funded on the minister's list, and I think I support the notion of asking the minister to rescind his idea and fully fund all the graduated and non-graduated students who want to come back to learn.
Trustee Leonard.
It's my understanding that of the list of courses that are available, all of them are core curriculum, like anything that you need in the core curriculum is pretty well there. I'm looking for clarification there, so that you won't need any course that in your basic line of courses, they're there. So the second part of my question then is, if they fully fund all of the courses that were there, where is the money coming from? Is it coming from K-12 education, or was there another pot of money? So we have to sometimes be careful what we ask for. So maybe I can get clarification from the head table.
And head table 2, there's 2. Yeah, that had.
As long as I don't have to make a toast, though. Trustee Horstman is correct. All the core courses will be continued to be funded, but there are specialty courses. There are locally developed courses, especially for ESL students, that would not fit in on this list. So if you're looking for English, math, science, it's there. But what Trustee Horstman was talking about was, and some of them are BOD courses that have been developed that would no longer be covered if a graduated person who is still struggling with their English, because there's a limit of 5 years for extra support, if they were still struggling with their English, then they could not come back and expect to be fully funded.
Where is the pot of dollars for these courses? Is it in the K-12 sector?
It is in the K-12 sector. It's always been in the K-12 sector.
Okay, so there's Trustee Ferris, and then we'll call the question.
I don't think we have enough information to pass this motion. I think we need to know what are the resources that are available to people who have financial hardship and where they can apply for courses. Are there other institutions and so on and so forth? Because really, we're talking about our money here. You know, it's not like if you want to spend it on this, that's great, but you want to find out if you really need to do that first, because it does come out of a lot of money that we want to use to support students in our schools.
I've got Trustee McNally, but you'll be closing in any event. You get lost word, Trustee. So I've got Trustee Horstman.
Just very quickly, as we know, we're in declining enrollment mode. Adult education is one of the last frontiers where we have the opportunity to actually increase our enrollment, and we are funded for every student who walks through the door. So we have nothing to lose and everything to gain, and the community has everything to gain by making actually secondary education available.
Okay, see no further hands. I'm going to call the question. Oh, pardon me, Trustee McNally, you get to close.
Thanks. In terms of the information, my understanding is that the core courses